Hey, everybody. How is everybody doing on this fantastic Wednesday night, April 16th, 2025? You may notice something a little different tonight. That's right. We may have to do it. The missing man formation. We're going in that missing man formation. That's right. The dollar box is not here to start the show tonight, but never fear. He will be here soon. Adam had a little engagement tonight, as you might remember. He will be a soccer coach this summer for the younglings, and he had a meeting tonight that goes right up until 8 o'clock. So he will be joining us as soon as possible. So I'll leave the yo-yo-yos for him, and I'll give you a hey. So I hope everybody's doing well tonight. I'm going to walk you through a few things tonight until Adam gets here. We've got a few topics I jotted down. This may change over the course of the show. As you know, we tend to go all over the place. But one of the things for sure we're going to talk about tonight is eBay Live. That is topic of the day. Everybody's talking about eBay Live, and eBay's really pushing their live selling. So it's a pretty topical discussion. We want to spend some time talking about that. A couple other topics we might get to tonight. I wanted to talk a little bit about SI for Kids cards. I've got some thoughts on that that may be different than Adam's. So I thought I'd share those and solicit some feedback on that. Want to talk about the selling cycle right now in this time of year. I think there's some unique things going on, and I want to see if you're all experiencing that as well. I will tell you, it's a really exciting time for me. As I look at my sales and I look at the interest in my listed inventory out there this time of year, I think it's really a special time during this time of year, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Been fortunate to hit the algorithm on some cards recently, so we might talk a little bit about what can you do to try and target that algorithm to get your items out there. And then how about supplies? There's been a lot of chatter in the Discord recently, which, by the way, check out our Discord right down here, scrolling across on the screen. If you're not out there already, it is a great place to get some information, some camaraderie of the group out there. Great group of people that share this Discord. We talk about some of our sales. We talk about supplies. We share deals when we find them. We talk a little bit about buyers that maybe have not left the best impression on us and maybe we want to stray away from. But pretty much anything, scanning, eBay listing, different listing tools like Car Dealer Pro. You can learn a lot about all of that stuff when you start to get that community talking about their experiences. And that's what the Discord is all about. And don't forget, we have the Patreon out there as well for the dollar box. Feel free to subscribe to that for some exclusive videos that Adam often puts out there. But why don't we jump right into the show tonight? So I said that we were going to have some conversation about eBay Live, and I watch a couple other content producers, and they've been talking about eBay Live. I get a lot of advertising for eBay Live. Whatnot has a big presence in the marketplace, in the live streaming platforms. So eBay is trying to push into that. And I don't think they're quite at the Whatnot level yet, but they're starting to make some inroads, and they have definitely internally in their organization decided this is a place that we want to be a player in. And they're really starting to tackle that head on with a lot of promotions and listing a lot of new sellers out there. And the conversation I thought we would have tonight is eBay Live for me? And we're going to jump into that shortly. I do want to take a minute and just say hello to a few of the folks that are out here before we jump into that. Sports Section Plus is with us tonight. He says, hey, I'm awake 2 weeks in a row. No Pearl sleeping on my chest. No phone dropped. Well, that is something there, Sports Section Plus. One more week and no 2 a.m. to 2 p.m. Oh, those overnight 12s, those can be rough. I've worked a few of those as well. Not my favorite. Barton Cards and Collectibles is here tonight. Good evening. Finally able to catch it live. No kids, late development, soccer game. Good to have you here. It's always a pleasure when we have you in the chat. Of course, if you can't be here for the live show, we do post it afterwards, and it'll be out there for you to watch later if you need to. But always a better experience when you can join us live and have that interactive chat with us. Romeo Bailey says, sweet. Art Green is here. Evening, everyone. Barton Cards and Collectibles says, it's been a while, but you're missing someone. Yeah, you're not wrong there. So Adam will be joining us probably, I'm gonna say in about 10 minutes or so. I think he'll be here. He let me know that he is on his way out of his meeting. He'll be home soon, and he'll jump on as quickly as he can. Knowing Adam, you may even see him jump on from the car just so he can watch and listen in the background until he's home and can participate fully. Dan is here. DGen Terp. Yes, eBay Live can stop sending me phone notifications. Yeah, they have brought their marketing department in full force. And they want to ramp up their live selling platform. There is no doubt about that. You can't avoid it. It is everywhere right now. And we'll see what they can do. But the real question is, are you someone that wants to pursue that? And we're going to talk about what I think are some of the considerations to have when you decide, is eBay live selling for you? Romeo Bailey says, this is awesome. Thank you for giving the community this knowledge. Absolutely. We've got the 3 N's that we provide on this show. We try to give you some news. We try to give you some nonsense, and Stu is the director of nonsense. And then we also try to share a little bit of knowledge. Now, you may be saying to yourself, knowledge doesn't start with an N, that starts with a K. Well, Stu's not the best speller in the group. Let's just leave it at that. Joe is here. He says, good evening, Mr. Charlie and Stu. Good evening to you as well. Thank you all for being here this evening. It's great to see you all, as always. Dan says, it would be nice if we got quarterly credits to eBay Live with our store subscription. Hint, hint. I think you're onto something there, Dan. I think that would be a good plus. It's funny. I was looking at my quarterly supplies credit earlier today, and I have not submitted it yet. But I was looking at it and saying, well, I actually don't need this. I don't need that right now. I wish there were some more options to use this on some other things. And that's a good option as well. Could you use that in other areas of eBay? So something we can definitely present to them. So how about we jump into this discussion on eBay Live? I put together, you guys know me, I am a little bit of a professor sometimes when it comes to this, and I put together a little bit of a presentation to be a helper for us here today. So the topic is eBay Live. Is it for you? And we've already talked about how much pressure they're putting on getting everybody signed up for this, trying to get new sellers out there. I know Adam is someone that's looking at it right now as well. I am not really looking to pursue any live selling on eBay Live, at least not anytime soon. Could I do that sometime in the future? Absolutely. Do I think it would be fun? Absolutely. But I don't think it's the right time for me right now where I'm at with my store. Adam, on the other hand, he believes it is the right time. He's done a little time on Whatnot. had a little experience there. And he's really trying to get on eBay Live now, and he thinks that might be a good fit for his store. But you always have to ask yourself, is this the right fit for me? And then the question is, what are the things to consider when deciding that for your business? How do you know if it's the right time for you? Well, first, let's take a look at some of the advantages of eBay Live. Why would somebody want to be on eBay Live versus just the standard auction or buy it now listings? There are some advantages to eBay Live that I think we should consider. And the very first one there is real-time engagement, and that means instant feedback. So we talked about, as we kicked off the show, how much fun it is having the live chat on here. You get that in a live selling platform. You have that give and take with your customers. You have instant feedback if they want to see something different about a card, or if they're interested in seeing you move your product in a different direction for that stream. I've seen sellers do that. They will prepare certain items for their stream, and they will make changes midstream based on feedback in their stream. So that real-time engagement can drive a lot of excitement. It can help you determine how to fine-tune your selling strategies and what you're trying to sell. Auction style excitement is there. So typically, live streaming is all about the auction, right? There are some options on some platforms to sell things for a fixed price in a connected store, so to speak. Thinking of Whatnot as I often look at those. eBay is more about that auction style, though, and you get that urgency and the competition for those items that are kind of hot out there, right? So you may get multiple people bidding. It's funny, as I think about that, there's a certain seller on Whatnot that I like to visit maybe once a month, every other month, something like that. And there's another buyer in that stream that I know every time I see them in there, I'm going to get into some bidding wars with them. And I have to check myself, and I have to say, here's where I'm going to bow out every time. Otherwise, I think the excitement of the bidding war just takes over. But as a seller, that's what you want, right? So you get that urgency for someone to be the first to get that item and win that item that multiple people want. And then you get that competition to drive some prices up. You also get those impulsive and FOMO buys, fear of missing out, right? So you have that hot new set that just got released and you've got some of that product. People are going to look for that in your streams, and those are going to be pretty popular items out there. You've got a curated audience with eBay Live. So you've typically got collectors and buyers that are potentially already followers of your store, already know the type of collection you have, but are used to the way and the items that eBay typically offers as well. And because of that, you are going to get buyers in your stream that are typically focused on the things you're going to offer, without too much work of trying to figure out, okay, what kind of stuff should I put out there, right? Because you already have that dedicated follower base and collectors on eBay that you know have a strong presence out there in eBay. You've got multi-card selling opportunities in one stream. You could sell out a whole box of inventory potentially. It's not too often you can do that in your traditional buy it now or auction listings, right? Improved trust and transparency is there in eBay Live. You got to remember, a live stream shows everything. So if you've got a card with any flaws on it, they're going to see it. And you can have buyers that will say, can I see that card a little bit closer before I make a bid? So you get that trust and transparency with your buyers because there's nothing you can hide in a live stream. So when you have trust and transparency with buyers, they are a little more comfortable making purchases. So definitely an opportunity and an advantage there. It's a growing platform. It's getting a big push from eBay. Now, we'll probably talk a little bit about this being a disadvantage for eBay as well. But right now, I want to focus on what makes that an advantage for eBay. Well, a lot of people want to be part of something on the ground floor and want to be able to say, I was there when they were just starting out. And if that's you, eBay Live is a great opportunity because it is relatively in its infancy yet as a live seller. Yes, it's been around for, more than a year at least, if not a couple years, but they haven't really pushed it like they're doing right now. And when you compare it to a Whatnot, eBay Live is just a little guy out there yet. So big opportunity there to be part of that growth and be able to have that badge of honor that says, I was there when. And then finally, integrated checkout. There are streamlined transactions with eBay Live. It works through your normal payment processes with eBay. So it's really easy for people that are familiar with eBay to handle that checkout process. So what do you think? What do you think about these advantages? Do any of these appeal to you? Did I miss out on any? But these are kind of some of the things that I weighed when I was thinking about, is eBay Live for me? And what would be the advantages of getting on eBay Live? And I think I really do like the real-time engagement. I love the back and forth. Even as a buyer in streams, I love that back and forth. That's one of the biggest advantages I see in it. I like the auction style excitement. And I like the multi-card selling opportunities. If you are doing, sudden death, 10-second auctions, whatever it may be, you can really fly through some cards if you get on a hot streak. And that drives the excitement as well. So if we have some advantages, of course, we got to have some disadvantages as well that you're going to want to think about when you're trying to decide, is eBay Live for me? And these are where I spent a lot of time thinking about the disadvantages of eBay Live. First of all, it's a limited audience. So as I said, it's still growing. You do not have the organic following that a Whatnot has yet. It can be there. You can get there. And if you have an exceptionally high following with your current eBay stores, you might even jump to that right away. But by and large, the audience is still limited because it's growing, and that can create some challenges to start a stream for the first time and draw a crowd and build that following. So that creates a significant challenge as a newcomer to live platform selling. How are you going to get people into your stream if they don't know you? And if they do know you, how can you draw those followers in with what you're going to offer in that eBay Live? You also have a higher time commitment. You've got the prep of your stream, all the lighting, cameras, background. Heck, I have to spend an extra 15, 20 minutes just getting ready for this live every week. You've got presentation and pricing. So you've got to think about, what am I going to put out there for a product, and how am I going to price it? Am I going to do those low-end auctions? Am I going to start higher and think I'm going to get, premium dollar on it? Most streams that I see have a combination of dollar auctions and then some fixed price high-end items that you can also make offers on and purchase. But the big difference here is the no listing and waiting, right? You've got to commit some time to set this up and really create a successful show with your prep work versus just showing up and thinking you're going to do it. Compare that with the traditional eBay model. Well, for example, I have almost 16,000 listings out there. I list them once, and then I don't really have to touch them again until they sell. They may sell same day. They may not sell for a year, but I did not have to do anything with them in that time in between. I did not have to invest any more time. And we often say on this show, time is our biggest premium of all when we're planning around our business. Next up, what are you going to do if you have no shows in your stream or you have very low energy in your streams? Again, your audience is what's going to make that successful in a live selling platform. And if you're having trouble attracting that audience, it's going to lead to a lot of disappointing streams. And now think back to the higher time commitment you just spent. You possibly just spent a ton of time preparing for a show that made little to no sales. You have to understand that that potentially could happen. Your exposure ends when the stream ends. You could leave with no payoff. It's not like the auctions or buy it now listings where, hey, if nobody wants this today, I'm not worried about it because someone may buy it a year from now and it's not taking any more energy from me, right? If you've got the stream and you're doing eBay Live, you are out of luck if your stream ends and you do not have the sales. And I've been on a few of those. It's not a super fun environment. I've been on streams where sellers are begging people to make some purchases, and it gets awkward in a hurry. You've got a little more tech and setup challenges on this. So do you have good audio tools? Do you have good visual tools? Do you have stable internet? Who's going to stick around on a stream that is breaking up every 30 seconds? Probably nobody, especially in these competitive environments of these live streaming sales environments. It's so easy to flip around. People will drop in for 10 seconds. And if they don't like what they see in 10 seconds, they're going to go on to the next one. It's just like TikTok or Facebook Reels or Instagram. You're going to see something, and within a couple seconds, you're going to decide, is this something I want to check out? Nope, you swipe away. And these live selling platforms are exactly the same, and you have to be prepared for that. So make sure you have good tools to have all your setup taken care of. You've got limited control over auction prices. I think we've all run into this. And on a traditional eBay auction, no big deal. Hey, my auction didn't sell. I can relist it, or I can make an adjustment to that price and try it again, or I can switch it over to buy it now. When you're out there in that live stream and you set your auction prices, you don't know what it's going to go for. If you create a stream and you say, I'm going to do dollar auctions, but I'm going to put some nicer stuff out there because I know they're going to get that return, you may be bet wrong. Maybe you just lost that $20 card for $3. That could happen. Now, that could happen as well in the traditional auctions. You can set some reserves in the traditional auctions, of course. But something to think about when you're thinking about eBay Live. And then these are new tools. eBay Live, again, is a relative infant in this market. They are still working out some bugs. They still have some features that people want that they don't have, and they're working on developing. So you're going to have to deal with a little of, hey, this is not perfect yet, compared to maybe a Whatnot who is more established here, has had more time to develop those tools, work out the bugs. With eBay Live, you're still going to deal with a little bit. So those are the major disadvantages that I find myself thinking about when I try to decide, is eBay Live for me? And I've really come to the conclusion that now's not the right time for me. I think it will at some point. But now is not the right time for me. And it's because the disadvantages to me right now outweigh the advantages. And I don't think I would get the return for it that I would really like to see. That's what it boils down to. Everything we do as resellers has to have some payoff, right? And I'm not sure if I see it there for me at this time. So what do you think? what do you think about the disadvantages? Did I miss anything here? Are these things you've been thinking about? If not, I think you should be. Let's check the chat real quick. Sports Section Plus says Adam knows the deal. He certainly does. Dan says, I will have to try eBay Live out again. The sudden death wouldn't register bids when I tried it, even when there was 2 seconds left. Yes, I did refresh my browser every auction and used other browsers. And that's exactly what I was just talking about with that last one there. New tools, having trouble with those new tools. It's going to happen. It's going to happen as heck. I just had a bug right now I had to deal with. But it's going to happen with eBay Live because they do not have the technology built up to the level of some other platforms at this time. ASAL Cards is here. He says, hello, Charlie. Hello back to you. 1 Million Cubs Project is here. Good evening, Bo. Catch my first eBay live sale tomorrow night at 7:30 Central. That's right. Bo is taking the plunge, and he is going to have his first eBay live sale tomorrow night. I'm going to try and catch it, Bo. I want to check it out. I may even try to support you with a few buys. I know you always have some good stuff in there. And I know that it's high quality stuff that I will be getting if I purchase from you. So I will definitely be trying to check you out tomorrow night. Folks, it looks like the dollar box has arrived. Looks like he's not quite perfectly set up yet, but he is working out the bugs on his tools right now. All right.
Yo.
Good evening. Good
evening. Hey, how's it going, everybody? Sorry I'm home as late as I'm home, but got short notice on a required soccer coach meeting thingy to pick up equipment and do all that, so had to leave for that one. So thanks, Charlie, for setting it up and holding it down tonight. I appreciate you.
Yeah, totally understandable. As you know, I do some coaching as well, so I understand those commitments that we have to meet on that. You joined us right in the middle of our eBay Live discussion. We've covered some of the advantages of eBay Live we want to think about, and we just finished going through some of the disadvantages of selling on eBay Live you want to think about. And we're really thinking about eBay Live specifically versus some of the other platforms as well. And I've been sharing my thoughts on that as we went along. Now, speaking of competition, your 2 major competitors with eBay Live right now are Whatnot, who's the granddaddy of live stream selling right now. I don't think there's any dispute on that. Whatnot's been doing it a little longer. They've worked out most of those bugs. They are the undisputed king right now. A lesser known one is Instagram Live. And I think that is probably already a distant third when you think about, hey, what kind of live selling platform do I work on or do I want to work on? But Instagram has got its diehard followers as well. So if you're a big Instagrammer on the IG, as the kids say, that might be an option for you as well to think about. Adam, can you think of any other ones that are out there?
Yeah, I know of a few sellers that do Facebook Live and sell that way. It's not as card friendly as far as like doing auctions where eBay Live, Whatnot, you're loading in your inventory and you have those countdown clocks for bids. And, Facebook Live would be more of a, hey, let's get 20 people on here and here's a card, everybody just type in a number and whoever types in the highest number gets it kind of thing. It's a little more old school.
Yeah, I would agree. It's definitely not card centric. Now, that's not to say that these other platforms don't sell things other than cards too, but they're definitely more card friendly.
And they're more designed for an auction selling platform. Facebook Live is just a generic. It's like YouTube Live, right? It's just a platform for you to bring live video out. It doesn't necessarily. It's not necessarily there for you to sell stuff.
Right. Exactly.
Whereas Whatnot and eBay Live are obviously designed for you to sell things.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So kind of a summary of what I see as my considerations as I think about, do I want to be an eBay Live seller? Time management is number one. I think it's a great thing to consider for full-time sellers that can devote more time into that setup and the thought process of how do you want to develop your stream. I think it's a little more risky for part-time sellers like myself who have a limited amount of time resource to spend on something. So I think that's one of the biggest things you want to start thinking about when you're asking yourself, do I want to get started on eBay Live or any other selling platform? Product selection is another thing you got to think about. What do you want to be when you grow up, right? Do you want to be a low-end card seller on your stream? Do you want to be that, $1 sudden death auction guy? Or do you want to sell high-end stuff? You got to think about that going in and decide what kind of audience are you looking to draw in that platform. So again, it goes back to time management. You got to spend the time thinking about that strategy when you get out there. The other thing is, are you comfortable on camera? It's not for everybody. We all know Adam's very comfortable on camera. He could be on here and talk all night. He doesn't care. I was a little, I was not 100% on board when Adam first asked me about this because I was not super comfortable on camera. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing on here. What the heck am I going to do in there? So if that's you and you think that's going to be a barrier getting over that, live selling might not be for you because we talked before about you need to maintain high energy on these streams. Like, give people something to watch. It's not just selling, it's also entertainment. A little bit of entertainment in there, right? So think about that. Are you ready to put yourself out there for half an hour, whatever you want your stream to be?
Yeah, and one of the other things with eBay Live you have to consider is you can't just start it. Like they have to. It's still in beta. So you can't even say today, like, I want to be an eBay Live seller. They won't let you on. So that's kind of a restriction right now for that platform. And it's smaller than, like you said, it's smaller than Whatnot, but it's much bigger in sports card sales overall, eBay itself.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of potential there. There's a lot of things that they obviously are still working on, or they would have opened it up more.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. I think you got to have the right kind of inventory. You have to be good on camera. You got to be able to generate an audience somehow. And then you got to be able to move quick enough. There's a couple of content creators that I watch that do live auctions, and they get like 20 cards done in an hour because they talk all the time. You have to really snap and get through it because it's a quantity game. You're never going to get as much money. I shouldn't say never, but 99% of the time you're not going to get as much money doing a 10-second auction as you are if you put it on a best offer listing kind of thing.
Absolutely. So in my opinion, I think eBay Live is a great training ground for new sellers that want to get started in the live stream selling platforms. The payment integration makes it easy, but just remember it has some limited features overall because they're still building it out to an extent. You've got that built-in eBay audience from your store followers. That should be pretty easy to attract. But I think it's a good training place and a good place to get started because it is a little smaller than Whatnot right now. So if you think about, that's an advantage and a disadvantage at the same time, right? if you're going to go out and make a bunch of mistakes as you learn it, as you go, maybe eBay Live is a good option for you. And you step it up later to Whatnot, or maybe by the time you got this down, eBay has made major strides with it. On the flip side, I think Whatnot is king for serious high volume sellers. If you can get approved with them and build a presence, it's got the best in class tools right now. And it's got the largest organic traffic and a great algorithm that promotes the shows. Those things will eventually be at eBay Live, but they're still building it out right now. It's going to take some time to get there.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not quite sure what eBay Live's fees are. I haven't looked that far. I haven't been approved to sell on there, so I haven't really looked that far into it.
Yeah.
But I would assume they're comparable to Whatnot.
They are very similar to their auction and buy it now fees, and I have them somewhere here, and I will find them for you. But that actually is a great segue to the last one on here, my comment about Instagram Live. There are no fees on Instagram Live. You keep 100%, but the flip side is you have no protections, right? And it is simple to enter the market, simple setup, but it's got that limited reach. So again, things to think about when you're trying to decide, is this for me? And I reached the conclusion right now in my journey, it's not the right time for me. But I could see it sometime in the future. I'm looking for my notes on those fees right now for you, Adam, and I'll have them in just a minute.
Yeah, otherwise I can look them up here too.
So what do you think of those considerations? Are those some of the things you thought about when you were deciding to make the plunge into a live selling environment?
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me at this point, the size that I'm at, I'm just looking for how can I move the stuff the fastest? You know, you don't have to get every penny out of everything. And it's like, I'm going tomorrow to look at 2 collections to buy.
Yeah.
Good size ones. And I'm like, do I want these to sit in boxes for a year until I get to them? Or do I want to throw them all on a live auction and sell 5,000 cards in a couple hours, you know? That's a tough one for me because I feel like in order to get bids and get action and viewers in my live, I got to put good cards on there. But if they're good cards, I can just list them on eBay and sell them instantly. I have enough followers and stuff on eBay that, like, Ellie De La Cruz is big right now. I bought a bunch of random, you know, lower end rookies at our card shop about a week ago. I think I bought 10 of them. They were in a $1 box, 6 for $5 is what I paid for them.
Yeah.
Threw them all on eBay, you know, $4 or $5 a piece, and every single one of them sold. And they were all to current repeat customers of mine. So they're, you know, they're clearly people who are watching my store for new listings. And I'm like, if I'd have put those on live, they'd have gone for like the buck that I paid for them.
Right.
And that would have been it. And I would have had to commit time to a show. You still have to, everybody thinks, well, it takes you less time. It doesn't really, because you still have to list them into your show. You have to perform during the show. You still have to ship. You gotta, you know, there's nothing really goes away with doing a live auction as far as the labor involved. As a matter of fact, it adds something because you got to be sitting there at that certain time, you know, when that action is happening.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this isn't just an eBay live thing. This is any live selling, really. I feel like if I do, and I did Whatnot before, and I basically pulled inventory that I thought would sit, and that's what I put in my show.
Yeah.
Put a couple of better bangers in there just to, you know, get some bigger names, because I did soccer. So I put a couple bigger names in there, you know, just to get some extra eyes on it, and, you know, maybe I'd sell a few other cards with it. and it did okay. Many of you were kind enough to participate in it and help me get it off the ground. But I don't know. Just because you put 500 cards in your live auction doesn't mean you're going to sell 500 cards. Like it's not like, well, if I list 500 cards on eBay, I'm only going to sell 25 of them. Well, you might only sell 25 doing it on the live.
Right.
You still got to get bids. You still got to have cards that somebody would want to buy, and your audience is going to be small. You might have. I mean, ComC is a very big seller. I think most of us know who they are. They were the very first card seller allowed on eBay Live, so they clearly have the greatest, time in on it. And their live auctions, they get like 400 viewers. Now that's nothing to sneeze at.
No.
But if you list a card on eBay, you've got access to millions potentially of people that might look at that card.
Yeah.
So it's still really, it kind of slims it down for you, and then you're reducing how much you get for it as well.
Right. And I did find those fees. So eBay is a little higher than Whatnot at approximately 13.25%, versus Whatnot's usually between 8 and 10%, depending on what you're doing. And then, as we said, Instagram Live, you keep 100%.
And that 13.25% for eBay is higher than if you sell it in your store.
Yeah, with your top rated seller discount too. Yeah.
Because you're at like 12% with the top rated seller discount.
Yep.
Selling it in your store. So it's costing you more to sell it on there too.
Yeah.
Now, do they only charge you if it sells, right?
I think so. Yeah. Okay. I think it's like a final sale, final value.
Yeah. So I thought about this actually while I was driving home tonight. I'm like, I did talk to somebody at eBay this past week about eBay Live, and like, when can I get on? And you got to have this many followers and this many. And I'm like, well, I know that's not true because I know people who are on it that don't have that, but
yeah,
whatever. I was like, what is this really what's this gonna grow to? And then let's say you start doing this as your standard thing, right? Let's say like we do a show every Wednesday night, right?
Mm-hmm.
What happens like a Wednesday night like this where I get an email and I got to go to a coaching thing? I can't. I have to go to that.
Yeah, yeah.
What happens if you have to miss a live auction show? Does that like totally kill your crowd then? Mm-hmm. Or let's say you sold a bunch of cards this week on your live. Great, that's awesome. Guess what? You got a live next week. You better go pick up some inventory.
Right.
I've even seen that at some of the local shops where they come in and they're like, "Hey, I'm doing a Whatnot show and I don't have enough cards. Just sell me stuff. I don't even care what it costs." And it's like, I don't have to fight. I used to have to fight for inventory when I was building my business.
Couldn't find the mute button in time.
I had to try to find cards, and it's like, I don't. That's not a great way to have to operate either.
Right.
And then what kind of cards are you going to grab? Are you going to grab some just so you have some, to sell? Now, if you have 100,000 cards sitting in a storage unit, yeah, I guess live would definitely be the way you'd want to go because you're never going to get all that listed.
Right.
You're just going to want to try to, dollar, and just kind of try to keep flipping them out if you can.
Right.
That might be the better position to be in if you're going to try to do a consistent live, but I've even seen that from other content creators and they have good Whatnot presence. They have some social media presence, and so they get good action in their lives. But I've seen them go to shows and say like, I need inventory for my Whatnot show.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, that can be a tough spot too. If you can't get out and do stuff.
Yeah.
And then I still feel like your peak time to doing the selling is really prime time. The most cards I sell are still from like 6:30 p.m. to like 9:30 p.m.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether or not I send coupons or I list good inventory at 10 a.m. Still, a lot of it is, nighttime sales. So, do you want to? every Thursday night at 7:00, you got to try to sell live. Maybe for you guys who are part time, that's not so bad because you're like, well, that's perfect because I got to work till 5 anyway. But
yeah, you're right too. I mentioned earlier there's a specific Whatnot seller that I go back to every couple months or maybe once a month. The reason I don't go back more often is because he broadcasts when I'm working, so I'm usually not available to go more often than that. So you're right.
So
those primetime slots are, a premium.
And I would love to do like a consistent 10 a.m. show. Like that totally would make sense for me.
Mm-hmm.
That would just be an hour in the day. That's how I conduct business for that hour. I just don't think I would get the attention I would need in order to make it worth it.
I think you might though, because you have such a significant following with your store and your eBay channel.
I think with eBay Live I can, because you got to remember, here's the biggest advantage to eBay Live in my opinion versus Whatnot is I've got 2,500 followers in my store, whatever the heck it is.
Yeah,
I can message those people and say, hey, I'm doing a live. Right. Check it out. And they've already bought from me, and they might already be buying stuff in the store, so now they do the auction and they buy in the store, and they have all those listings in one place to look at. When you go to Whatnot, you're on a new island. Yeah, and you have to bring whatever inventory you want over there. And now my experience with Whatnot was positive. I'm not trying to poo-poo any of it. I just don't know how well it fits into my business model either.
Mm-hmm.
And for the purposes of this show, we're mostly selling low-end cards and taking like base Joe Burrow cards and trying to sell them on. I mean, even Joe Burrow is pretty good, but taking base, I don't know, Jalen Rieger cards and trying to sell them, on eBay Live or Whatnot, I don't think you're going to have a lot of success with that.
Right.
So you're still going to want to. I don't know. I don't see the point in something that is hot right now and is selling right now. I don't see the point of putting it on a 10-second auction.
Mm-hmm.
Like that to me seems like the exact wrong thing to do. That you want to price it at what you think you can get it for, or put it on a regular auction where you can get bidding action and have that exposure to the entire eBay
well, I think
customer base.
I think an argument can be made about I don't have to worry about the market changing on me. For example, just before the show, I was reviewing a certain section of cards that I had that I felt like they were really, well, it was one of my other topics for tonight, SI for kids cards. I feel like they are really subjective to the hot FOMO sky high values when you get that magazine the first week, and then they drop significantly, right? So I had some cards out there that, there were comps for $9-12 the first couple of weeks it came out. Now I don't know that I could get $1.99 for them. So I was adjusting them. I think that's one of the arguments for live selling is, man, I can move that right away and not have to worry about depreciation later.
That's fair.
But you also miss out on appreciation, right?
Right.
And some names, some cards. Yeah.
Well, let's say I've got a Cooper Flag card, right? I mean, he's like a name right now. And I want to put it on there. And my regular audience is, let's say 50 viewers, which would be a decent amount of viewers. Well, let's say none of those 50 give a crap about Cooper Flag or are buying Cooper Flag.
Right.
You know what I mean? It just feels like it's still kind of a crapshoot. And then you start at $1 and it goes for $3, and you could have just put it on buy it now for like $20.
Yeah.
Because I still feel like a lot of, and you guys prove this to me in the Discord. By the way, if you're not on our Discord, there's the link right there. You guys have proven that to me, that you go to Whatnot because it's a good place to buy stuff to flip. And that's not the sell. I'm not that seller. I'm the end user selling to the end user.
Yeah, more than anything. I think you got to be careful with that though, because you're speaking to a very specific audience.
But that's my point though.
I think the larger audience out there on live selling streams are not that audience. I don't think I could say that. Well, most of them are out there looking to flip. I think it's more collectors, and people like that. Like even when we were talking before about, well, here's the kind of stream you want to get. I'm looking for the exact opposite of what you want as a seller. I'm looking for streams that have less than 30 people in them, so I don't have a ton of competition. I'm looking for buyers that are very likely to say, you know what, we're going to start with this card, but I'm going to throw these other 20 in with it. That's money to me. I just got 21 decent cards for $3 that I can sell at $2 a piece, right? So that
was exactly my point. For the people that are in the chat and are in our group, they're mainly using it to buy.
They are, yeah. You know, but I think
resell.
that's a smaller group on those platforms than maybe you're thinking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I see so much about the entertainment in it. I think so many people are like, hey, I'm going to hang out with my buddies. We're going to buy some cards. We're going to listen to some music. Like, I don't think you want to underestimate that part of it. I think, especially in today's environment after COVID, where we're kind of all more secluded and shut in than we used to be, I think that's the new form of hanging out with your buddies to some people, right?
Yeah, I think what kind of started it was like backyard breaks and some of those guys.
Yeah.
You know, because that's what they were. They became entertainment, and then I'll enter a break and watch these guys get weird, and something to do. And if I get some cool cards, that's fun too. And it is a form of gambling, which I actually do believe that some of that's going to be more regulated going forward. Probably not in our current political environment, but I think that there's enough bad actors in it, and people losing their shirt on stuff, that they might regulate it more, and that might change some things. But doesn't really matter to our group here. Most of us aren't breaking anyway, but so I love live selling. I think it's something that needs to be a part of a growing card selling business. I think eBay Live would be the best place for me, just because I already have so much put into eBay. I have the current listings there. I've got the followers. I've got the newsletter. I've got all these things that I can grow it with. But we'll see. I don't know how well it's going for the sellers that are on it, and it's limited. Like I said, it's still in beta. You can't just jump in and sell on eBay Live.
Right.
So when that changes and that happens, how much of an audience are those sellers going to lose when everybody's on there?
Yeah.
That's
true.
But I think the best thing for me would be the way I would use it. I want to use it two different ways. Okay. So these are my strategies for live selling. I go and I buy just a big box of random decent cards, color, some numbered stuff, some bigger names, whatever. Buy a 2-row shoebox for $100, right? But I don't really need the cards to be in my store, or my listings are full in my store, whatever the case may be. Boom, I just go through the box and I just try to sell as many of them as I can in a live show. Right. I think that would be a great way to do it. You'd easily get your $100 back pretty quick. You should. So I like that, where it'd be a very short term. I don't really need any more inventory, but this is a decent box of stuff. I'll pay the $100, and I can just dump it all in, within a couple hours.
Yeah.
So the other thing I crossed my mind today as I was thinking about eBay Live and how I want to run it is taking my oldest bags of inventory. So, like, I'll take my 10 oldest bags of inventory and I'll just open them up and I'll put all of it online.
Yeah.
Right. Because you gave it your chance to get your larger, dollar amount, or like you said, the values have gone down, like with the Sports Illustrated for Kids cards or something like that. You can go, yep, I got what I could out of these bags. I'm just going to put them on here, and boom, it opens some new.
I like that idea.
It opens some new listing slots in your store. For me, that matters because I'm close to the top of it, and you kind of get that old out of there. So instead of doing like end listing, sell similar, and just keep putting the boat back out to sea. Just taking them out of there and just trying to move them all.
Right.
It's probably not going to be your best quality inventory because there's a reason it's out there. But if you've got 300-400 cards out of those bags and you can sell 100 to 150 of them, it's better than you were before. And then whatever didn't sell, you could list back in the store, or you could I don't know, you can make a decision about those after that. But it could be a good way to get some of that moved, especially like you said, if prices have changed. You don't have to really go research those prices. You just simply put everything at $1, whatever your price structure is for that live, and then just put them on there and sell what you can.
Yeah, for sure.
So those would be my two paths.
Yeah, that was all my thoughts on eBay Live, and I thought I'd share it tonight since there's so much activity around it. We've got Bo on. Bo's going live with his first stream tomorrow night. In case you missed it before, tomorrow night at 7:30 Central, Bo will be going live on eBay Live. That's a lot of lives. I don't think I've ever seen live so much.
That's live. That's live. Yeah, I hope it goes really well for him. I'll try to catch it tomorrow night. What do I have tomorrow night? I feel like I have something I have to do tomorrow night, though. I don't know. I'll have to think about that. But yeah, as long as I've got some time, I'll try to check it out and give him some support.
Absolutely, I will as well. Maybe you and I will get into a bidding war on something.
Doubtful. Yeah, I don't think I'd really be there to buy, but I'd be happy to be there just to make sure he has some audience and just see how it runs. And I haven't been on an eBay Live yet, so I would at least like to go on to one just to see kind of how it works and stuff too.
I have checked some out, but anytime I popped into one, they're not selling anything. They're just talking, or they're just setting stuff up, or they're teasing it. And I'm like, if I'm here, I want to see something to buy, so.
Yeah, I've seen a couple like breaks on there, and it doesn't really look any different than a break anywhere else, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they just sell spots that way through eBay or how that works, but yeah, I think it's an element that you can't ignore in selling these days. I don't think it would ever be my primary way of. I know people who just do out-and-out auctions and that's it. I don't think I would like that. That wouldn't really be for me. But as something to move inventory quickly that maybe I bought and I don't really need and it's going to sit around, that's a big motivator for me to just put it on there and get it gone. And stuff that's been sitting around that hasn't sold, grab that and get that on there and see if you can get a quick sale out of it. Because then I don't even care what price it goes for.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? If it's in a bag that's 2 years old, sell it. If I got 20 cards in there and 10 of them sell for $1 a piece, I'll take my $10.
Yeah, absolutely.
And move on. Free up some space in the inventory, and well, kind of like a store does, right? So a retail store, generally the way they work it is they put the inventory on the shelf, unless it's a seasonal thing or something else. But if it's like a regular item, year-round item, put it on the shelf. It has a time attached to it for how long it can sit on that shelf. Once it doesn't, it goes in that clearance aisle.
Yep.
And then they just drop it until eventually it's going to go out the door.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I guess I can do that with with the buy it now prices and stuff like that, but I don't really want to have low buy it now items. I don't think that's the right. I think it's better to just put it on the line and get it sold.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things you want to also think about that is kind of like a hidden advantage of this. And by the way, Barton Cards and Collectibles says, good luck, Bo, tomorrow night. Is the advertising you get for your store on this as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So maybe you do sell 50 cards at low margins in a stream one night, but perhaps that leads to 100 sales the next day in your store.
Absolutely. And that's why I said eBay Live would be my place to do the bulk of the live selling, because that's where my business is. I mean, it's really hard to go on Whatnot and then say, hey, go look at my eBay store. And I know you can build like fixed price listings and whatnot and all that too, but I don't know that I want to do and start another one. Maybe I do. Maybe that's like a good way to expand, to another platform, is be on one that has a high live selling, component to it. I don't know. So what the problem with Whatnot is, it is just swamped with card sellers.
It does have a lot.
There's like a 500,000 card sellers on there. It's insane.
Yeah.
So to find your spot in there somewhere to sell your little stack of, parallel cards or whatever you got that you want to move it's a tough one. Tougher than. I don't know how many live sellers are going to jump on eBay. I think people who are just like they're just into live selling, they're on Whatnot. I don't know that it's. And people who sell on eBay aren't necessarily going to be live sellers. So I don't think it's going to get quite as, at least not right away. I don't think it's going to get quite as swamped on eBay with live sellers.
Yeah, we talked about eBay Live doesn't have the number of organic audience buyers, whatever you want to call them, as Whatnot. Whatnot is, they get a lot more casual people just looking at it right now because they're a known commodity.
And I hate to break it down to like generation and age and stuff, but like Whatnot's cool. And it's the new, like, this is how I sell on Whatnot, where like eBay, my dad sells on eBay, that's where my grandpa sells his mini trains and,
tobacco tins.
Right. So I just feel like there's that like hip new move, kind of Whatnot type of thing versus the eBay. Okay. eBay Live is going to be a bunch of us old guys selling cards. Or it's not going to be a lot of backyard breakers.
Yeah. Okay.
But we'll see. I mean, it's kind of new. I don't know, but I hope it's. I did watch Bo's show. I don't think I watched his show today, but I watched it yesterday, and he was talking about, talking to the eBay Live team, and there's some challenges to doing the listings in there and stuff like that, and that's something that would kind of scare me away from it a bit too, because you got to look at the time management of it.
Yep.
You don't want to take 2 hours to set up a show, then you got to be live during the whole thing for an hour, and then you sell like $50 worth of cards. So yeah, I would love it if you could just take cards you don't want that are in your store and just flip them to, like pick a date and time of your next live. Like, I would love to just take my oldest bags, bring them over to my computer, go to those bags, switch them from buy it now listings to, put them in my next eBay Live show, right?
Right.
So your photos are there, the descriptions are there, all that stuff is there. And then, if my show is tomorrow night at 8 p.m., it just flips to that. And then at 8 p.m., all that stuff is in there and my show's ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that would be a game changer. I would do that. And right now, I would work on that after this show is done tonight.
Well, I don't know about that. That's crazy talk for you.
It is. That's too late. I'll get up at 3 a.m. and do it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't sound like they're quite to that point yet. And I know it's new and stuff. I'm sure they're going to build a lot more out. And eBay has a lot of resources to get whatever they want, done. But yeah, kind of like right now, like I can take a buy it now listing and I can just flip it to auction and start it on auction right now. Like, why can't I do that in a live auction? Why can't I just take it and change the way it's listed and put it on a live auction and just choose which show I want it to be added to?
Right.
Because now, let's say I want to let's say I've got that listed and I want to, I'm taking my old bags and I want to put them on live. Now I got to take them out of the store as a buy best offer listing, and then create, a listing for the live auction. So now you have those extra steps. As far as I understand how it works, I haven't sold on eBay Live. I'm not claiming to know, the ins and outs or all of that, but just, based on what I've heard and seen, is that's kind of the struggle, is that the listing is there's no like quick, simple way to do it, really.
Yeah.
So, and Bo, tell me if I'm wrong, if you're still on here, because you're obviously, someone who's gone through the onboarding and all that. If you're like, no, dude, it's slick, you just hit switch to live auctions and boom, it's ready. Then I'm 100% in. I would do that. I'd do a couple shows a day if I needed to.
Yeah, maybe Bo wants to join us for a little bit next week and talk about his experience at his first show, and I'm sure he'll be talking about it on his show in the mornings as well. But maybe he wants to share it with us as well.
Yeah, I'd be cool with that. That would be fun. Yeah, I think many of us are interested in it. We don't get a ton of chatter on the Discord about it, but I've seen it pop up here and there. Hey, is anybody on eBay Live, or did you buy anything? So it's definitely in front of us.
We haven't had a request to create a channel for it yet.
We haven't seen it. We haven't seen like a giant appetite for content on it or anything.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think that's something we will see, because I feel like every once in a while now we have somebody, hey, now I'm on Whatnot, and they'll pop their Whatnot auction on there, and so it still feels like there's some growing appetite for the live selling type of platform. Yeah. So we'll see. One of the other things I didn't like about Whatnot is it feels like shady at times. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there are a few sellers that I've scanned out, and I'm like, yeah, this one doesn't feel like it's for me, and that's part of it.
Because Whatnot kind of lets anybody on there. Yeah, you have to do the onboarding, and I think they make you share links of like your YouTube channel and your store or something, just to kind of validate that you actually, work. You're actually doing stuff in the selling area.
Yeah.
But outside of that, it really wasn't very difficult to get on it.
Right.
But I know setting up that first show, I'm like, I had to look up the cards, because you can't do it in Whatnot. It's not like, you can look up sold listings on Whatnot.
Yeah.
So I had to go to eBay and look up all the sold listings, because a lot of them were soccer players I had never heard of before.
Mm-hmm. And
then you have to build it in there and add your photos. And it was like, this is just as much work as it is listing it on eBay, and I'm going to get like 1/8 of the money, on the live auction. But because I'm all for the nickel today versus a dime tomorrow, but I don't want a penny today versus a dime tomorrow. There's a limit to getting the money up front versus holding on to it and trying to get a real value.
Right. Yeah.
So, and that might not be the same for everybody. If you only paid a half a penny for the card, maybe a penny's fine for you, and you're just going to do the volume and do it that way. But, yeah.
We'll see. Dan says Thursdays is his bar trivia night, but he'll try to swing by to see it. You don't want to mess with bar trivia night, right, Dan?
Yeah, I did that as well when I was a young man, and I had a good time with it. So.
Yeah.
But I did a really cool one for a little while with the NFL, and it was the same thing. You got the little boxes at your table and all that, where put your answers and stuff in. But it was a predict the play one.
Yes. Yes.
So I went with like 4 of my buddies who are into football, and we'd sit there and it'd be like, oh, this is going to be a pass complete for 15 yards or whatever it was. I don't remember the exact details. It was 20 years ago, but
yeah, they still have it.
Did they? Yeah. We had so much fun doing that, because it was like, I don't know, you weren't answering trivia questions, it wasn't like, hey, I'm smarter than, it was like, you were literally guessing. Like, you didn't,
right.
You had some idea. Like, let's say it's 3rd and 22. Well, they're probably going to throw it.
I hope so.
But not necessarily. They might run it just a punt so that they don't turn the ball over. You know, we've seen that too in the NFL. So
yeah, depends on game situation too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Wolfie Joe says, "Good luck, Bo." Johnny M is here. ComC got to be making a ton. They routinely have 800 to 1,000 people in a room at one time.
They might in like primetime shows, but I've literally watched one eBay live and it was ComC's. And they had like, I want to say it was nothing to sneeze at. It was like 400, 425 or something in there. But stuff was going cheap though. One thing you have to keep in mind with ComC is that it's not actually their cards. Like it's different because they're just basically getting the commission off of the sale, so they don't really care what it sells for. Yeah, it lowers their commission, but they have no cost basis in it. Versus when I go on there and sell it, I need to get a certain amount of money out of it so that I get a profit, you know. But anyway, the show I saw was like 425 ish or so. You know, it kind of bounces around a few bidders here or there, but
right.
I saw some pretty nice cards go pretty cheap. So there still isn't that big, you know, even with 400 people in there, it didn't bid stuff up to like market price, at least what I saw. And I'm sure some of it did. You know, if you had like who's this A's player who's hot right now? Soderstrom or whatever?
Tyler Soderstrom,
Tyler Soderstrom. I sold probably like 25 Tyler Soderstrom cards this week. And I've had him listed forever. I mean, he was a rookie last year, right?
Yeah.
I think it was last year, year before. So I've had, you know, a bunch of them listed, and, you know, no big deal. They didn't really sell or what, you know, so fine. Now they've all sold. And I'm like, cards that are that hot that I'm selling at full price in my store, you know, my overpriced price in my store, not offers, they're just flat out selling. Yeah. They're going for like a buck on like these ComC auctions.
Mm-hmm.
Right while the guy is hot. So the theory of, well, he's hot, I put it on a quick auction and, you know, that'll get bids. I don't know. I didn't really see that play out that much either. But I don't know. But that, again, eBay Live is also very new. There isn't as many shoppers on there, and there's probably a lot of people out shopping whatnot that are like, oh, I should see what's on eBay Live. And, oh, Soderstrom, he's really hot. I'll bid $2 on this one. I don't know.
That is true.
It's the thing. I'm more like you, Charlie. I'm a little more conservative. At least on the selling. Yeah, on the selling side. Don't get too shocked yet. I'm going to explain that. At least on the selling side of things, and I don't like if I've got a card I paid $1 for that I think I can sell it for $10. I'm willing to take $8 or $9 for it.
Yeah.
But I don't like the idea of putting it on a $1 auction and maybe it goes for $2.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I didn't. Now those soccer cards that I did in the whatnot auction is kind of like my example I had earlier, where you buy the 2-row, you know, the shoebox 2-row, and you paid 5 cents a card or something like that. Perfect for that.
Yeah.
I virtually got those soccer cards for free, so I had nothing in them. So, like, I made $60-some on that quick auction, and great. I got a bunch of cards out the door that I don't think, you know, Chabeski is going to have a big, you know, hot spot in my store if I listed as buy it now.
Right.
Yeah. But I kind of take care of those cards now by just putting them on traditional eBay auction, which I don't have to be live for. I don't have to be on camera. I just have to list it, and then it sells in auction. And
very little investment, right?
Yeah, so I'm still getting the auctions and getting those sales, just not doing it, you know, through that live feature.
Yep, and you don't have to put in all that time.
And that still works to promote your store, because somebody goes on there and they bid that 99 cents on that card. I've had lots of buyers who've come in and they've bought other cards to go with it.
Right. Bo says ComC live stream tonight sold a Wemby holiday hoops for $20. Insanity, not Vinsanity, but insanity.
Yeah, I mean, and he's right. You can see the flip side of that, because I've even remember we were talking about my auction last week where I had that what was it, Jeff Blake refractor or whatever that went for like $6.85. I'm like, I would have put this for like $3 in my store. And it got like 14 bids. And then the person who won it paid instantly. So it was like totally legit besides. So he's absolutely right. The flip side of that can work, and you can get more money than you should get. I think the odds of that happening for like a ComC or somebody bigger is definitely a bigger possibility than somebody who has 15 or 20 people in their stream. But but you have to look at it as like just like building your eBay inventory and adding listings and stuff. Same thing with live. You're going to have to do some shows, and instead of building your listings, you're building your audience.
Yes.
You need to build more viewers and more repeat buyers and that kind of thing, and then you should get some of those. Why would somebody buy this for $20 kind of thing?
Yep, absolutely.
And I don't know, the holiday hoops, I think those do go for more. Are you talking like the winter parallel where they come in the little tins? I'm assuming that's what he's referring to, right?
That's what I consider the holidays too. The holiday
and
hoops.
I think those go for like 15 or 16. I just looked at one not that long ago.
Yeah.
Let's see here. So 20 is definitely good.
Then he's got the flip side here. He says an 89 Topps Eric Dickerson sold for $204, a freaking dime box card.
Yep, that you're right. You're definitely highlighting the ones where it can go bigger for sure. Greetings Hollow. I don't even know what that is.
What?
It looks like the holiday hoops cards. The hoops. You're right. I was thinking the Revolution. Those are the ones that come in the little tins.
Those are in the tins. Yeah.
So you're right. Those go for like looks like $7 to $8. The holiday hoops. So yeah, getting $20 was pretty good.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
Wolfie Joe says,
but no, that Eric Dickerson card he was referring to, I just sold, well, it wasn't an 89 top, so I guess you have to compare it, but I just sold 2 Eric Dickerson vintage cards. One was like an 87, and I think one was, I don't know, I'd have to go back and look, but it was a little bit older than that, but I got $2.99 a piece for them.
Yeah.
Doing it as best offer. So $2 for a 1989, I don't know, that doesn't seem impossible.
I mean, we'd put it in our store for $1.99, right?
It was in my store for, an 89 tops. Yeah, probably $1.99. Yeah. And I would sell it. Like I said, I sold those 2 that were, a year or 2 older for $2.99.
Yeah.
So that wouldn't be a dime box card for me. That would be, that would be listed in my store. Eric Dickerson's a big enough name that I would list there.
Yeah.
In good condition. We didn't talk about the condition. Maybe it was like super minty and centered. That can, when you're looking at older cards, there's other things that can come into play, as far as the price on an auction.
To Bull's point, though, you can find those in a dime box.
Yeah, right. And then I buy it for $0.10 and I sell it for $1.99.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's literally my, how I.
That's your whole business model.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So Wolfie Joe says FOMO from large crowds, and I think that's a big part of the live streaming platforms too, right? Like you're sitting there saying, "Oh, if I don't bid on this, someone else is going to snatch it up," right?
Yep.
And that's what you want as a seller.
No, what about shipping for eBay Live? Does your regular shipping policies apply to that?
That's a great question. I did not look into the details of that, but I would think so. If the checkout is integrated with standard eBay payment systems, I would think the shipping is as well.
Because see, that's a big advantage for eBay Live too, because on Whatnot you have to charge a certain shipping amount and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So if you can still do your free shipping and then put those on there, at $1 a pop or whatever, and then again, hopefully they buy other cards, whatever the case may be. That would be an advantage.
Definitely. Dan says he remembers watching someone open a pack of cards live and then sell them right then and there, and kept saying "fresh pack opened."
Yeah, I've seen people do that too. Unless you hit something pretty good, that's usually a loss. But
yeah, I mean, we all do that
it's an interesting.
day, right?
Yeah, it's an interesting experiment for
Pack
sure.
fresh. MI3 Cards, welcome. Good to see you tonight. What suggestions do you have for new live sellers? What inventory should you start with? How do you get people to tune in? And how do you add the inventory? MI3 Cards, we do have a 1 question per person limit. So you're working on credit now. So
that's he's like 6 people right now.
No, great questions. Great questions. Yeah, I think those are some of the things you got to think about before you make the decision to go in there too, right? For me, when I look at those, what inventory should you start with? I think you got to make that decision well before you apply, and you need to decide what kind of seller am I on here. I am a low-end card seller on eBay right now. Is that who I want to be on eBay Live? Well, if so, I'm probably going to bring lower-end stuff with better names, I think is what I would typically start with. Like the Eric Dickerson card, right? Names that I know people are going to recognize and there's going to be an attachment to. One of my topics I was potentially going to talk about tonight was, how do you target the algorithm? And I have a couple cards that are in the algorithm right now because I bought a box that had like 20 copies of each of these, a Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, and I just keep selling 1 copy after the other. That's the kind of stuff I would target if I was going to start as a live seller, as a low-end card seller.
Yeah, kind of like my Stat Smashers, right? Every single video I make has 5 or 6 Stat Smasher sales in it. I agree. I think the other thing is, if you're going to do not big names, then it needs to have something special about it. It needs to be a short print or some kind of desired parallel or color or serial numbered or, cool insert or something like that. I also think teams could matter. I've seen a couple of people on Whatnot are getting a little bit more creative, trying to find some spot, that somebody else isn't doing. And I saw a guy the other day do a Yankees auction. So all the cards there was like Jorge Posada. I mean, there was like names you probably wouldn't put in a regular auction, but it was perfect when he's like, I'm selling all Yankees cards.
Yeah.
And I thought that was genius because I have a lot of team buyers, okay, I could do a Cowboys auction and you have Drew Pearson cards and Bob Lilly cards and like these guys that, probably wouldn't. Yeah, they probably wouldn't get a lot of action in like just a regular $1 card singles auction, but would do great if you were like, hey, it's all Cowboys cards. Like, dude, I'm a Cowboys collector. I got to be in on this thing. Yeah. And then you got a better shot at selling multiple cards, right? Because if it's all Cowboys collectors in there, you're probably going to have somebody who wants 4 or 5 different cards, or your odds of that are better than like, okay, I'm selling a Joe Burrow and a Josh Allen and a Barry Sanders and a Derek Jeter and a blah, blah, blah. What are the odds that you got somebody that wants all those, that collects those different players? So,
I think teams is a great way to think about it, whether it's teams or a certain player's collection or, Super Bowl winners for the past decade or something like that, right?
Yeah, or like a really cool set, like you're going to do an all flawless auction, or you're going to do an all jersey card auction or an all autographs auction. You gotta, I think you have to mix it up a little bit, try to do some different auctions, and see what goes for you. And I think your questions are also a little bit difficult to answer because it kind of depends on what platform you're on. And what kind of a following you have. Do you already have a customer base that you can get to come in and bid on your stuff? I don't know. How do you get people to tune in? Well, it's like anything. You got to advertise it.
Promote.
Yeah, post your link on our in the appropriate channel on our Discord. Post it to your Facebook account. Put it on your Instagram. If you do YouTube, put it in your video that hey, I'm going live. Come check it out.
Yeah,
it's gonna be these cards. Put links everywhere. Do a sponsored post on Facebook. Where it gets to more eyes than just your friends. Yeah, that's the other thing people don't really value enough with eBay. eBay does your marketing for you.
Yeah.
That is invaluable. As somebody who's been selling stuff forever, that is invaluable. And that's kind of what happens with now people want to do all these live shows and they're like, well, how do I get somebody to tune in? Well, guess what? Now you have to do the marketing. Now, if you're doing an eBay live, eBay is going to market you a bit. But it doesn't mean you're going to get people in your stream. You're still going to have to try to do some of that on your own.
Right.
Kind of like you list a card and you do promotions and you do, it's going to be the same thing. You're going to have to put it out there.
Another idea that I have not seen personally, granted, I don't do a lot of wandering around out there looking, and I got to think somebody is doing this someplace, but there's always the option of running a gimmick too. What if Fritz the Wampa was selling cards? People would tune in just for that.
I sold Fritz the Wampa this week.
What?
Yeah, I sold the Wampa costume this week. And the Greedo. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm not going to wear them anymore. They're taking up space and they need to go bring someone joy. So I'm moving them on. But you're right. Yeah, you can, don't be like the clowns with backyard breaks, please, because nobody wants them. But their concept worked, right? I mean, they got all these people in their stream. They wear weird costumes and they, look at this car. They go over the top with their personalities and all that stuff. And yeah, that's something you can do too. And then your last question, how do you add the inventory? Again, it's going to depend on which platform you want to sell on. So on Whatnot, it's pretty simple. They just kind of have a form and you just fill out, each spot for however many items you want to sell, and then make sure you put those items in order so that when you get to the show and you've only got 10 seconds at a time, you're pulling the next correct card.
Yeah.
That added a little challenge to me. I used a 2-camera system too. I had a camera where I'd put the card on it, and then I had I shouldn't say 2-camera system. I used 2 devices. So I had one where I was filming the card, and then I used my laptop to do like advance to the next item and things like that.
Yeah.
Because I've seen people try to do it entirely on their phone, and it's a little cumbersome.
Yeah.
Especially if you have a lot of action. If you get chat and stuff like that you're trying to respond to, it's kind of hard to do.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. No, I think eBay Live. I think they'll do fine. I think they'll have a spot in the market. I don't see how they couldn't have a spot in the marketplace. With who they are. I don't know that they'll take over Whatnot, or if that's even their goal. But yeah. I like the idea of having it on the platform where I run most of my business. To me, that just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Already got my customer base there. I didn't think it would take this long for me to get on eBay Live. I knew it was in beta and you had to request. I'm like, oh, it'll be a month. That seems like they're just dragging. Because that was last July that they announced eBay Live, or last June or something like that.
Right.
That it was something they were starting, and like, dude, it's like a year later and you still don't have like a regular subscription sign up for this. Like, it shouldn't have taken that long. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not quite sure what their struggle is, but hopefully they'll kind of start opening it up a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, in reality, if I can't get on, there's going to be a lot of people that can't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I doubt there's a lot of people that have, 2,500 subscribers on social media, on a video platform, and 60,000 listings in a store with, I mean, I got pretty decent numbers and I still haven't gotten on there yet. So,
Right.
if you're a new seller and you've got 25 sales on eBay and no social media presence, you're not going to get on for a while.
Well, they probably went out and looked at our show here and they're like, oh, this other guy's holding him back. He's got to ditch that guy before we'll bring him.
or they look at me and they're like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. We're not going to let him on here. Yeah, and that's the thing, because I don't know if you guys have filled out the form requesting to be on eBay Live, but that's one of the questions they ask is, where have you sold live before, and then can you link to any videos of you selling, and so they're clearly like trying to be selective to try to get like build it up with the right personalities, I guess. I don't know how else to put it, and hopefully iron out some of those bugs and let it open a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I'm really interested in that listing procedure, because if I got to start all over with the listing, I'm not as likely to want to do a lot of live shows, because it's more work.
Right.
To sell the item for less money.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like a great deal, right?
It's not. it would be occasional for me. It would be like those certain situations where I'm pulling, some old bags of inventory. I just want to get them out, do a show for that. Or I just bought inventory I didn't really need, but it was such a good deal. I'll just take it and just try to run it, and get it done where you don't need the full price. Those would be my two situations for that. Otherwise, if it's easy to list the inventory, just flip it from buy it now to live auction, then I would do them all the time.
Yeah.
I would just regularly grab a rack of eBay listings and just throw them on live and keep it going.
Yeah, that would be easy enough, right?
You'd think, yeah. I mean, if you already got it on there, I don't see why you can't just set it to live and give it a go.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking that that's what they're going to want to do. I just don't think that it's been built there yet.
Yeah, and I don't know why they wouldn't have done it like that right from the start. Yeah. That seems a little odd to me.
And maybe it is that way, and I just haven't heard that from anyone yet. If it's not, that's something that holds me back a little bit with it.
Yeah.
Being like I do one every day kind of thing. I'm not going to do that and then list them all that day, versus just flipping them over.
Yeah.
Because I'll do that sometimes with regular auctions. I'll be like, man, this is an old, buy it now listing. I'll just throw it on auction. Some more apt to do that with traditional auctions, because it's so easy to do. You just literally relist as or change it to auction, and it's good to go.
Yeah. Well, MI3 Cards says 500,000 card sellers on eBay. Is that all?
Well, on eBay Live. Yes. And I was referring to on Whatnot, I think, but yeah, it's how do you as a new person compete against 500,000 current sellers?
Yeah, stand out against
that's going to be the challenge, and there's no easy answer to that. And those people who have grabbed the top spots, they're not likely to relinquish that. They're going to fight to keep it.
Yeah, it's true. Bo says eBay is being very selective with their live sellers, and sounds like that will continue.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Why would they take that strategy, though?
I don't know. Because they're worried somebody's going to get on a camera and do something dumb, I guess.
There is a risk, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but all that's going to do is have them go to another platform. It's not like they can't do live selling. They'll just do it somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true. MA3 says they can't be that selective. I hear Bo is doing it.
That's right. That's right.
Now. Bo earned his shot. He says,
yeah,
get out of here, Merle.
I think the biggest thing is I think when you have platforms where you're giving people a spot to be who they want to be and do their business the way they want to do it, I don't think you should hand pick who gets to have the chance at that or who gets to have that experience. I think that's, eBay could lose a lot of sellers that way, that, well, they won't pick me because I don't have a YouTube channel. Well, who cares if you have a YouTube channel? You should still be able to sell live.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, what makes them pick you versus him versus her? What are you doing what are they looking for in that selection to be able to sell live?
Yeah, and that's a slippery slope, because when you start hand picking people, then you find reasons why maybe someone's getting unfair advantages, right? So
that's my point. If you're going to have one of the great draws to eBay way back in the day was it was an open platform where anyone could participate. You could be, some guy in a basement who has absolutely no skills at selling anything, and you can list your old pair of shoes on eBay and have a shot at it.
Yeah.
That was the beauty of it. And I get it, being on camera and having a presence and blah, blah, blah. I get that that's a little bit different, but yeah, I don't know.
Technically, it's usually just your hands on camera. Well, I guess some sellers do everything, right? So
yeah, and I think it's language, if I don't want a lot of swearing, and to me, it should be based on like what you're doing with eBay. That's how I would, if I was eBay, that's how I would select. You might not want the guy who has no eBay store and sells on Whatnot right now. Like, great, he's going to sell live on here, but he's not going to build an eBay store, and he's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Versus like, well, this guy's been on eBay for 20 years, has 50,000 feedback and 30,000 items. Why wouldn't you want that guy to sell live? Well, clearly he's good enough to sell on your fixed platform or your traditional auction platform. Why wouldn't you want them to try to sell live? Right. I don't see the motivation behind that.
Yeah, that's a fair question.
Yeah.
Merle says, just kidding, buddy. You'll be great and you will do well. Bo says the live console is pretty clunky right now, which is what we expected. They're hoping to have quite a few updates for Q3.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know. Q3's. So I guess it's a matter of perspective. Some would say that's not that long. I feel like that's a long time for an organization with the resources of an eBay. It just surprises me that they wouldn't launch a better first day product, right? I get it. It's not always the easiest thing to do, right? I just got done with a day of technical issues in my job, but
sure.
It just, I guess I had higher expectations for them. In fairness, I have not tried to, obviously I'm not a seller on eBay Live. I've only been out there as a buyer, but it seems like they could have got closer to a finished product at launch.
Well, and that's what was. Do you remember when we were at the National and that guy was like prodding me? Oh, you need to sell on live. You need to. And I'm like, sure, I'll fill out the form. I fill out the form and then I never hear anything back. I'm like, well, what are you doing? Like, why are you promoting this thing and then you don't want anybody to do it? Like, I have a legit eBay business. Like,
Yeah. Although, think about this, and maybe this is what their marketing department has determined. You often talk about, your store, you want it to be like Nike, right? And maybe somebody at eBay decided we want eBay Live to be more exclusive than whatnot. We're going to charge higher fees, and we're going to be more selective in our sellers. And we're going to make it a place that is a little difficult for people to get to build up that high-end image on it. Now, I think that goes counter to most of eBay's image, but maybe that's what somebody was thinking with that.
Well, and if that's the case, if I want to be the Nike seller and not the Skechers seller, then don't I fit what they're trying to get?
Don't be knocking my Skechers slip-ins.
I'm not. I got Skechers too. I like them, but I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting their take on it, like, what they're trying to do with it.
Yeah, for sure. Merle says, I'll try to tune in. I'm umping a game tomorrow, late afternoon. I should be able to catch some of it at least. Thank you for your umpire role. Umpires, referees, officials of all kinds are in short supply across the country. We need more people getting involved with that. So thank you for your time and effort on that.
We were talking about that tonight at our coaches meeting. Like, they were like, don't be jerks to the refs. Every year we got to get new refs, because some of our refs are like, no, I'm tired of getting yelled at. I'm not doing it anymore. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're having and I refereed when I was a kid, and I had to throw a coach out once, and then he refused to leave. And like, who wants to do that for $15 a game or $20 a game,
Yeah.
Yeah, so I agree. That's a tough spot to be in. If you're a home umpire, it's even worse, because you got the balls and strikes thing, which people don't either understand or don't have the right eye for, and yell before, thinking it through. But yeah, it's a tough spot sometimes.
Yeah, for sure.
I enjoyed refereeing like 90% of the time, but that 10%, man, really makes it a bitch. So, as a matter of fact, this particular game where I had to throw this guy out. Now, I was like 13 or 14 at the time when I was refereeing this game, and it was one of my buddies from my club team that was refereeing with me. So he was, same age, and we had like personnel there from the league because this guy had been a problem, right? So we're like, well, we'll attend the game and see how it goes. And I made a call, and he didn't agree. It wasn't even an important call. It wasn't like penalty shot type stuff, like game-changing type call. It was like a pushing foul on the far sideline or something, nothing where it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You don't agree with the call, fine. But I mean, he's swearing at me and this and that. And I gave him a yellow card, and he kind of like tried to knock it out of my hands. I'm like, because when you for those who don't know soccer, when you yellow card somebody, you have to walk right up to that person and you put it right to them, because the scorer needs to know who you assign the card to, right? So I went up and I kind of put it right in his face like this, and he tried to knock it out of my hand, and then out came the red card. And I said, you need to leave the field, and this and that, and do you know who I am, and all that kind of stuff. And I said, well, until you leave, I'm not restarting the game. And he refused to leave. And I said, fine, then I'm going home. So I packed up my bag and I was ready to leave. And then I saw the SAY people over talking to him. But I'm like, dude, this is like a 10-year-old's game, like a 10 or 12-year-old's. I don't remember the exact age, but they were younger than me by a little bit. And this is the attitude you're going to, bring to a field. And yeah, it's unfortunate, but we even talked about that tonight. They had to have 2 coaches last year. They had to throw out entirely, and they're not allowed to coach anymore. And it's like, it's recreational soccer. Like, come on. Fine. If you're a coach and you're screaming at the referees and it's, college level sports, well, that's different. But yeah. I expressed that to Luna. Luna, last year was Luna's first year doing an organized sport. And I said, I don't care what you think is right or wrong or what's going on. That referee is God. And if he says it was a handball, it was a handball. You going up there and yelling at him that he doesn't know what he's looking at and this and that, that's not going to help your case.
Right. You never get a call changed in the history of mankind.
No, it's still going to be a handball, and now he's not going to want to, favor you in anything because he knows you're going to scream at him.
Right.
So it's that's a tough one. And you got to start it early with the kids, because I'll tell you, the ones that are screaming when they're 8 years old, they're screaming when they're 20 years old.
Yep.
So you got to nip that in the bud as fast as you can.
Yeah, I agree with that. Question from MI3 Cards: do I have to set alerts for when Bo goes live?
I don't know.
I think you can set a reminder on them because they're scheduled, so you can get an alert for it. Boomslang is here, New Jersey, right? Boomslang.
Yo.
He says, yeah, the single yo. 1 million Cubs. Bo says you have to list as a scheduled auction, and you have to time it around the time of the live. Then download a report of all scheduled listings. Copy paste item ID from the spreadsheet to live console.
Yeah, no. That sounds terrible.
Yeah, the list as a scheduled auction. Then you have to time it around the time of the live. Then download a report of all scheduled listings. Copy and paste item ID from the spreadsheet. Wow. I have a feeling that's not as bad as it sounds, but on paper, on screen, that seems like not fun.
Yeah.
Don't you think? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how else to respond to that. That just sounds like a lot of work to sell your card for 10%.
Yeah. Well, Bo agrees. He says it's a pain, but sounds like it's being addressed.
Yeah.
So Bo has faith that eBay is going to turn this around pretty quickly and make those.
If eBay makes it easy to set up the show, and they make it easy to take whatever inventory you want and put it in the show, then they've got something. If they can't figure that out, I don't know. And I mean, if ComC is doing this like 4 shows a day or whatever the heck they're doing, like, dude, they must put a lot into it. But they also have 40 employees or 50 employees, so they probably get somebody who just sits there all day and does live shows, or a couple people.
Yep. Bo's got a shout out from Boomslang. Yo at 1 Million Cubs Project. Right back at you, Boomslang. Bo dabbles in bar trivia. Team name is Keep the Fibs Out. I like it.
Nice.
I like it. Of course, everyone knows what fibs are, right?
Well, and where he is, he's not that far from the fibs. So all the more reason to call it out.
Yeah, for sure. I won a 2023 Topps all-time fan favorites, Andre Dawson, PSA 10 the other day on eBay Live from ComC for only $5 just a couple of days ago.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty good deal for a PSA 10.
See, now, again, ComC doesn't have to care because they just get a percentage. Like, they have no cost into that card.
Right.
So for them, live selling should be absolutely a big part of their business, because it's gonna they're getting money out of the deal no matter what it sells for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Call back to some earlier comments. Haunted Hoops is what I meant. The Halloween cards.
Okay, but which Haunted Hoops? Was it one of the parallels?
Good question.
Because if it's the plain white border, and there's actually two different Victor Wembanyama cards in that set besides.
Yeah.
If it's the plain white border one, those go for just a couple of bucks.
The candy corn and stuff, like those hollows, were tough pulls though.
Yeah, the green slime is a little bit tougher. The orange, I call it the picnic table, because it looks like a picnic, like a table cover.
Yeah.
Tablecloth. They call it, I think they just call it pumpkin orange or something like that, but it's that kind of pattern. Those are rarer than the whites, but not as rare as the slimes. So that would matter too in that value. But the oranges are like $4 or $5. The plain white ones are just a couple of bucks, and slimes are $7, $8, as much as $10 here and there.
Slime or no sliming.
So if it sold for 20, yes, that would be very good money, even if it was the slime. If it's one of the more rare parallels, like the candy corn or the spider webs, then that's not that great a price because those are pretty tough pulls. Not as tough as the football. The football numbered cards were like impossible.
Yeah.
But the basketball, I was getting like 2 or 3, of those types of parallels per pack, like per whatever assortment.
All right.
Yeah, I pulled a stuffed Curry spider webs. I think I got like $180 for that.
Oh, nice.
Yep. Because I sold it like early on because I couldn't find them anywhere, so I ordered those packs on Costco. I don't know if you remember that.
Yep.
And the first basketball like rack that I ripped, I got that SP Curry, so I sold it right away.
Okay.
So I'm sure those prices aren't that good now, but yeah, that was not bad out of a $20 box.
Not at all.
Romeo
Bailey's got a question for you, Dollar Box. How do you attract buyers to your eBay store for the base and insert cards? Example, Emmitt Smith and Brett Favre cards.
Yeah, I mean, Favre, I've been a seller of Favre stuff forever. I have a ton of inventory of his stuff, so I've just got a customer base that I've built over time that can come in and consistently buy Favre stuff from me. Of course, Emmitt's been there from the beginning as well. Not quite as much inventory as I have Favre. But yeah, I think the biggest thing is just I like adding categories to my store. So I have a Favre category, I have an Emmitt Smith category. So I like that. I have my own URL for my store that I advertise, and when people go directly to the store, then the categories kind of pop up a little bit more than if you're just randomly searching on eBay. Like the structure of your homepage kind of features your categories a bit. So I think that helps. And I have regular followers of the store, so I send them coupons, and I have a newsletter, and I try to stay in contact with customers as much as possible. And then honestly, once you get a sale from somebody, don't let them go. Give them good customer service. Ship the cards right away. Pack them well. Leave them feedback. Include a thank you card or a business card. Do stuff like that. And if they're like, hey, this guy had a ton of Favre cards, and I was happy with the first 2 that I bought, I'm going to go look at what's there, and I'm going to buy a few more. And then it just kind of keeps going from there. Favre restock is pretty regular for me. I have quite a few boxes of Favre cards, and then still, even if I find them today and they're good deals and value boxes and stuff, I'll pick it up. So I think one of the things that's understated in an eBay store is having enough variety of something that someone came to your store for. And what I mean by that is if somebody came to my store to buy a Favre card, I got to make sure I have a good variety of Favre cards, right? That's going to increase my odds to get multiple sales. Versus, well, I have one Favre card, I have one Emmitt Smith card, I got one Joe Montana card. It's going to be pretty tough to build a customer base off of, not having a lot of variety. And that's where just number of listings helps. Even if the number of, increasing your numbers of listings doesn't increase your sales, it just increases the odds of getting additional sales. And anything you can do to help your odds, that's where it's at.
I agree with that. Rip and Flip says, "What's up, guys?" True.
Yo, what up, Nikki?
Yeah. Good evening, guys. I think they're being so selective on eBay Live so they don't turn into the circus that Whatnot has become.
I'm just not sure what their parameters are. Like, what are they looking for? You got to have this many live shows you've already done, or like they haven't made that clear at all. There is a little form you fill out, but it doesn't say like there's no like set requirements of what they want. And like if you're similar to another seller, well, why is the one seller on and the other seller's not? You know what I mean? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the differentiating marks are, but it's not relevant if you can't. To be honest, because if you can't get on, then you can't get on, then you need to sell somewhere else. Like that's just how it is. That's business.
Yeah, that's
true. And then don't push your customer base to go buy on eBay Live, because if you can't be on it, you're not helping yourself.
True. Johnny M, I'm sure one day eBay will open it up to the majority of their sellers. At the end of the day, their job is to make as much money as they can. They have shareholders to answer to. Absolutely correct.
Yeah, I agree. And then I was thinking about this, Charlie. You said earlier, like they want to have this like their premier seller. Like, why can't they do tiers then? Like, these are their premier eBay Live sellers. Yeah. These are like they can do that. They do that with anchor stores and premium stores and blah blah blah. Why can't they do that if they have like preferred eBay Live sellers or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
And then let the little people still operate, but they don't get that top channel exposure or whatever the case may be.
That's actually a great marketing tool, because everybody wants to gamify things, and then they're like, I want to be that premier seller, right? I want to get that badge that says I'm a premier seller.
Yeah, and then you could do just like they do with the store levels. They could do like different fee levels, right? They could charge the little guy a little more, and then give a better deal to the bigger sellers to keep them away from Whatnot or whatever.
Right.
Because what's the motivation for ComC to sell on eBay versus Whatnot? They're paying more money to do it, and they could build just as big an audience on Whatnot, I would think.
Yeah.
And they sell on Whatnot, to be fair. They sell in both places, but like why? I don't know. Yeah, if it's costing them more to have a smaller audience, why would you do that?
Right. Yeah, good question.
And maybe they're getting some other kind of deal. But that's kind of what happened with like Burbank and PWCC. They were like, dude, eBay doesn't want to do nothing for us, so we're out of here,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what's going to happen. Boomslang says, let Angel Hernandez ump their game, and they will appreciate the local guy or kid so much more. Absolutely. Yeah. That guy, that record is not good on his balls and strikes, is it?
Him, and then have Joe Buck, do the announcing, and you're all set. It's 3 hours in hell.
I have no problem with Joe Buck. No
Baseball
problem.
Purgatory. The thing I have a problem with, I think Joe Buck could be a good announcer, but I think he has too much bias. So he's like, well, this is the California club, and this is just the Milwaukee club, and they're just a small town team, and blah blah blah. I hate that stuff. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, if you've got a good team, you got a good team. It doesn't matter what town you're in or how big your payroll is. I've seen the Florida Marlins win a whole bunch of World Series, and they had the smallest budget for the longest time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's a good point. Max is here. First time we heard you tonight, Max. Kids sports have been above the parents for years. Parents couldn't get it done when they were kids, so they got to live through their kids. Sad.
Yeah, he's not wrong. I've definitely seen that. Sometimes I think a person, and I'm not going to say a parent, because it could be anybody on the sidelines. You don't necessarily know, but I think an adult person has things going on for themselves, and it's a way for them to go and scream.
Yeah.
Scream and shout and say it's about this soccer game and how could you make that call? And obviously there's something else going on in their life, because like a regular person wouldn't do that. So that's like this guy I had to deal with as a kid, that's kind of how I felt about it. Like, the guy is so upset in his own life that, like, when he gets to a soccer game, that's his outlet to just scream and rant. Not the appropriate place to do it, but it's kind of like Eminem, right? Like, Eminem's like kind of a softie, probably would never really hurt anybody, but yet he makes songs about, doing the things he's going to do to people because that's his outlet, right? That's his way to get out his frustration or his anger or his argument with that person or that group of people. Right. And he does it with rap music. That's his out. I kind of feel like, because growing up in sports myself, as I'm sure many of us have, there's always been people, parents, whoever it is on the sideline that are like that. And it's like, how could you be that way? Like, it makes no sense. It's got to be something with them and not with,
right,
the call on the field kind of thing.
Yeah.
No, really if I had called a penalty on this kid and it equated to a penalty shot and there was hardly any time left in the game and it was tied. Now, mind you, this was a 10-year-old rec league game, but still, I could see you screaming and yelling a little bit more about that because that's a game-changing call.
Right.
But, like, dude, a pushing foul on the sidelines, it doesn't. You got to read the room a little bit, read the field a little bit, like, what are you doing? Yeah. And I've seen so many of those types of incidents where I'm like, this doesn't even why are you even yelling about this? Anyway, hopefully I won't run into any of that this year.
Hopefully not. Johnny M says, you would think they would want top-rated sellers plus get first dibs on eBay Live, since according to eBay, they're among the most reputable sellers.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you. I think anyone who applies for this and is in good standing in eBay and everything else is ready to go, you got to let them do it. Like, I don't get the point.
Yeah.
Of discluding a seller. That I don't know. It's a very poor business model, in my opinion. Yeah, if they're not gonna open it up at all. No, if their intention is still because it's just in beta and they want to keep it, under control until they have things ready, then that's fine. I can understand that and wait, until. But if this is like their long-term decision to just like hand pick sellers, I don't like that at all.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a little odd if you ask me. But I'm also one that is often in the, like, don't stress about what you can't change, right?
Yeah, and that's exactly what I said. If you want to sell live and you can't sell live here, you just do it over there. Like, it does. Yeah. There's other platforms, and we talked about them tonight. The other places. So then, yeah, you just bring your business, to someone else if they're not going to let you do it. They got to do what they got to do for business, but so do you. So
Well, speaking about business, why don't we cleanse the palate a little bit and talk about something else?
Yeah, so we've got we don't have any major announcements this week, but we do have the Goat Card Show coming on the 8th of June. I had to think about that for a second. Yeah, June 8th is the next one.
Good thing it's right there on the flyer.
I know. Same time, same place. We're about a little over 60% sold, I think, something like that. I know we've had quite a few like messages and stuff in the past couple of days. I don't know where those are at yet. I haven't been home, obviously. But yeah, so we're still finishing booking it out. Plenty of time yet. If you want a table, let us know. It's free admission, so come join. And Charlie and I are going to do a live show from there. We're going to have our first live breaking on stage at the show with BB Sports and Collectibles. I think I said that right. If I got it wrong, Benji, let me know. So we're excited about that. We have to get together yet as our team. We were supposed to do that this past weekend, and unfortunately, we weren't able to put that together. So we're going to reschedule that, and we'll hopefully have a few more final details ironed out and can update everybody with that. But we got time before the show too. So yeah. So I think it's gonna be great. We're gonna have Find a Goat again. That was very popular. We've got our autographed helmet. There he is. The mini minis. We've got our autographed helmet giveaway. We've got our tag us background for you to take photos in front of and have a good experience. We're gonna have great food like we always have. Plenty of seating. The bar will be there. Actually, I don't think they opened the bar this last time, did they? It's kind of weird.
Yeah, they didn't. They didn't have a full-time bartender there, but I believe you could get something with the staff that just work in the food. Yeah,
and that makes sense because we don't do a lot of bar sales, so they probably just send somebody back there to make a drink, and then it's fine. Right. So, so that works. But yeah, there'll be food and drinks and all that good stuff there. Plenty of bathrooms. All that is available there for you. Plenty of parking. So if you haven't joined us, join us. We'd love to have you. If you're coming from out of the area and you need help with accommodations, things like that, let us know. We can get you put together on that side. But yeah, we're always looking for new ideas. So even if you just want to shoot us some ideas of things you think would be cool at a card show that we could try out, that'd be great too. We have some more like marketing material ideas we want to go through, some more visitor or guest experiences we want to add to the show. So we're going to continue to work on it and try to make it the best show that it can be with our little screaming goat there. I don't think there's anything else right now that we have to add to that. I think the breaker thing was like the only. I kind of had the breaker thing worked out last week, but we didn't really make it official. So that's official.
Yeah,
we have a breaker. Yeah, it's gonna be a good time. I like our show. I have a really good time at it. It gives me good feels. It's a good feel show.
Good vibes.
Good vibes.
Like, well, yeah,
positive vibes.
Good feels is a little creepy.
Yeah, whatever. But I had a good time doing the live show there. I think that was a lot of fun. Charlie and I had a chance to go do some of our pickups, ahead of time, so we kind of show you some of the stuff we found and get a little feel for the environment. I think that's a fun added thing to the show. It allows us to bring the viewers here to that experience if they can't be there in person.
Absolutely.
And card shows have been hot. It's all about the card shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of hot shows and hot sales, I found myself thinking today, are you a big college football fan, Adam? Do you watch like the bowl games in that season and stuff?
Not really. I don't really watch sports in general.
So I've been in a pool every year for the past 20 years, and the host always titles it the most wonderful time of year because there's like football on for 3-4 weeks straight, right? And I found myself thinking today about card sales, and I was like, gosh, these last couple of weeks, I feel like this is the most wonderful time of the year, aside from the holiday season, like, that holiday push we get.
Yeah.
Because sales have been wonderfully consistent and across the board. And I started thinking about that today, and I was like, okay, WrestleMania is next weekend. So wrestling's been hot. We've got the MLB season in its first month yet. So like today I sold a first Bowman prospect card of someone I listed a year ago, and I'm seeing stuff like that moving now as they're finally getting a shot, right?
The Soderstrom cards. I've had Soderstrom cards listed for almost a year, and now they're all sold.
NBA is starting the playoffs, and I'm seeing a bunch of NBA sales of the greats and some of the modern players. NFL season is about to have the draft here in Green Bay, and you're starting to see some excitement on the NFL again, and starting to see some players move their end cards. The F1 season is going on. I've been selling a bunch of F1 cards. It's truly a wonderful time in card selling because we kind of have this convergence of all these major sports right now that are meaningful or have a high level of excitement because they're just kicking off. right?
And
So,
don't forget about Champions League. They're in their quarterfinals right now.
What's that?
Soccer. Champions League? So Champions League, so soccer has like...
I'm not familiar with soccer.
Okay, soccer has like... Shut up. Soccer has like 400 different leagues, and you want to do well in that league, so you make the Champions League. So it's like all the best teams from all the leagues, and then they all play each other and find... So it's like the true champion. It's kind of like AFC and then NFC, and then they play each other in the Super Bowl kind of thing.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Sort of
That's
that on a bigger scale. Yeah. And then, but yeah, right now, Real Madrid and Arsenal played today. I'm not going to reveal the score. I have a couple of viewers that I know haven't seen the game yet, so I'm not going to say how it went, but they're kind of playing for that top slot. And so, yeah, very competitive. When soccer gets really high stakes, the games get really, really good.
Yeah.
There's a lot more aggression, a lot more, chess game type play to it. And the team that needs to score really puts the ball, gets the ball going. And yeah, it's good. It's good. I love Champions League. So Messi.
There you go. Yeah, I think it's just a unique time though. Yeah, there you go. There you go. With so many things being relevant and meaningful and hyped right now. Now, I would say within the next month, we'll start to see a little lull in baseball till we get the All-Star game, and then we'll get a little bump, and then it'll lull again, and then last couple weeks of the season, it'll ramp up as we go to the playoffs, right? NBA season, I think, dips dramatically once these playoffs are over. I noticed the racing circuits, NASCAR and F1, drop quite a bit outside of season. So there's only a few points in the year where you can really see the results of diversifying like you can in the period right now, right?
I think the exception is when you talk legendary players, because I feel like I do a lot better sales of those types of players in off seasons. So like when it's during the football season, people want Mahomes and Josh Allen and Saquon Barkley and all that. And then when that's done, then I sell Elways and Marinos and Montanas and Favres. Yeah. There are some exceptions to that. There are players that just sell all the time. Like I sell Favre all year long. It doesn't matter when it is. Jordan sell all year long. Like there's just certain players that, always have some market. But yeah, I feel like those are those kinds of dips that you see. And some off-season activity can spark it too. Like if there's trades or, in the soccer world, you have the transfer portal. When that opens up and players can change teams, you'll see a lot of card action due to that. So, like you said, drafts. WNBA just had their draft, I think, last night or 2 nights ago or something. And there's been some anticipation for that just due to the spike in WNBA interest.
A few really good names in the draft too.
Yeah, people are actually like paying attention to that draft, where I think, for many years that was not really on the radar as much.
Fair.
Yeah, so there's enough sports out there. There's enough media entertainment things out there, that there should always be something you can play.
Yeah.
And then when it's the off season, that's your buy, right? So right now you should be buying football stuff.
Yeah, and then I was wondering, like, is there any equivalent to that in the non-sports market or TCG market? I don't know that there is.
TCG maybe, as versa, like as far as like playing decks go, for if there's buyers for certain cards because they want to put it in their actual deck, that might change it. As far as like non-sport stuff goes, it's like anything else. Like there was a new Sonic the Hedgehog movie coming out, so I sold a ton of Sonic the Hedgehog cards. There's a new, if there's a new the new Star Wars season, that's a pretty popular show versus some of the other current Star Wars projects. maybe some Star Wars Andor cards will sell, more. It's basically people get some tunnel vision, and the thing that's in their vision right at that time is where they're going to go and they're going to buy stuff.
Yeah.
So,
like
yeah,
I feel like it just when new sets come out, that's the only hype I really see or hear that causes some surges, right? Like Prismatic.
I agree. That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
And then there's been more hype for Pokemon recently, so there's probably some exception to this right now, but generally once the next set is coming out, then that previous set, the prices, which I guess that happens with sports cards too, but yeah, the previous set really kind of starts to drop and doesn't have as much interest. People want the new thing coming out, and but yeah, I think everything has to have some cycle to it, like you can buy a pair of shorts all year long, but there's probably going to be more sales in July than there is in January, because that's when you're going to be wearing them most likely. So I don't know. But I think I've never really focused on that a whole lot. If I'm going through a box and I find some basketball cards that I think are a good deal and it's not basketball season, I'll buy them. If it's during basketball season, I'll buy them because great, now I can flip them right away. Like there's a reason to buy during season as much as there is to buy out of season. My last buy at the card shop was almost all baseball, and I sold almost all of it.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of, Bobby Witt rookie cup stuff, a bunch of Ellie rookies, Rushman rookies. Like I was buying that kind of stuff, and those are hot right now. So, as long as you can find the right prices, you can sell like the immediate hot thing too.
Right.
Versus, well, you should find more football cards value, in value right now because it's the off season. But then you got to hold them too. So, you got to find that trade off in somewhere in there. It made more sense for me to buy a bunch of Ellie and Jason Dominguez rookies and stuff like that, and turn almost all of it, within a day or two. Than it did to buy a bunch of Jalen Hurts at a discount and save them for the next 6 months.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah. And that's where your live selling could come in.
That's a great point. Yeah. That sounds like a real opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. If eBay will let you sell live. So there's that. Right. But like I said, there's always whatnot, and you're right. I kind of forget about the Instagram, but I know sellers who sell live on Instagram and they love it. And again, it took them a while. They had to build an audience. They constantly post pictures of cards, and I know some sellers like it more because you don't have to build all the listings for the items and stuff like that. You literally just go on Instagram and go, hey, I got this, 92, 93 Upper Deck Shack rookie, $3. Anybody want it? I'll take it for $3. Great, here you go. Some sellers really like the simplicity of that versus, and no fees, of course.
Yeah.
And well, you don't get protections. Well, that's not necessarily true because if they're paying you with goods and services for through PayPal or something like that, you've got some protections from the financial transaction part of it.
Yeah, that's true.
So, and you don't even have to prove that they received it. So in a way, you have more protection versus like eBay. They can file a claim against you, and now you gotta put tracking in and do all that. You don't even have to deal with that on Instagram.
Yeah, that's true.
If they do a chargeback to the credit card, that's between them and their credit card. It's not something you would have to work with. So I don't know. There's definitely ways to get out there and get some cards moving.
Yeah.
I still like listing, letting it sit there till it sells, or getting some offers on it and selling it.
Dan actually wonders maybe eBay's looking at whatnot to see what people are doing out there. And maybe if you don't have a presence out there, they're like, we're going to move on.
I know some sellers that are on eBay Live that don't even do Whatnot.
Okay.
So why did they get on and somebody else didn't? And the fact that you would have to be doing stuff on Whatnot in order to get on eBay doesn't make a whole lot of sense either.
Yeah. Yeah, Dan says he's had his Whatnot seller account for over 3 years and still has never done one. So there's still hope for you, Dan.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I don't think that's their determining factor. And it didn't, like, again, I don't know how many of you filled out the form, to apply for eBay Live, but it doesn't, they just ask if you've had experience on there. They're not like, oh, you've had to have had at least 15 shows on Whatnot and post them all here. Like, there wasn't anything like that. So it seems like an odd criteria. Oh, you had to have sold somewhere else in order to sell here. Like, I don't get that. They don't do that when you apply to sell like static on eBay.
Yeah.
They don't say, well, how many Shopify accounts do you have, or how many PayPal transactions have you done? They don't. That's not relevant. It has nothing to do with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the thing I heard that makes the most sense to me is they are a little timid about the legal ramifications of having just anybody out there talking on their platform. So, which is different than listing.
Right, but there's ways they can combat that, just like being the middleman for these regular transactions. They were new to that game back in the day, and they took the leap with that, and it's obviously worked out pretty well.
Yeah.
But look at any like live videos. They didn't invent anything. Okay, let me just put it that way. What they're trying to do has been out there for a while, and we talked about it. There's a lot of other services doing it. You can find ways to handle, the bad actor part of it. I mean, look at YouTube. There's millions of people on YouTube making all kinds of random videos, and somebody sees something that is inappropriate, they report it, and then that channel goes away. Like, you set it up so that people can evaluate, the live seller, and then you deal with it if things aren't going well.
Yeah.
That's the correct way to do it, not just be like, oh, I don't know, somebody might, say a swear word during one of these things. We better not let anybody on. Like, that's dumb. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And it's a really bad way to build a business, because you're never going to be able to grow it if you don't like take a chance on people. How many people want to go set up eBay Live and do live auctions and then just have a swear fest on there? Like, who's motivated to do that?
Yeah.
And if you're looking at people who are current eBay users, if they have like thousands of transactions and complete them on time and are a top rated seller and all, why would they go on eBay Live and do something stupid and risk everything they've built that they haven't made those mistakes on, in static selling? Like, I don't think that's real.
Okay.
To me, the explanation that makes sense is they're in beta and they want to focus on sellers who they believe will give them the feedback and work with them to try to make this thing go, and that they can get at least something built right now, get some following built on there until it's capable of opening it up to more regular, smaller users. That's what makes sense to me.
That's an explanation I can get behind too. Yeah. Well, we are all caught up in the chat, and eBay Live dominated the discussion today, pretty much. So we are just about 2.5 hours in, and I would say a good 2 hours and 15 minutes were centered around eBay Live selling. So we definitely found a good topic for tonight. We had lots to say about that, and I'm sure there'll be more coming as they continue to promote that platform and build it up even further. So I'm sure there'll be more developments that have us come back to that topic in the future.
Yeah, I'm hoping that they have enough fire behind it that they keep working on, trying to make it easier and more accessible and things like that. I think if they can do that, they'll find success with it.
Yeah.
for sure. I can remember because I was on eBay in the very early days, and I can remember I had someone who messaged me that was in Canada, and they couldn't see. I can't remember exactly how it worked, but it was something to the effect of, because they were in Canada and I was in eBay or the U.S. listing, they couldn't see my listing and they couldn't buy what I had.
Okay.
So I was like, well, this makes no sense. But it just took them a while, and that's a more complicated thing. You're talking international laws and all that stuff, but now you can kind of sell to anybody in any country. Like, it's not really that big a deal. So I feel like it's just, we have to allow them enough time. I think they don't want to make some of the mistakes that Whatnot made. That's my biggest opinion of this, on why they're kind of putzing a bit with it.
Whatnot made mistakes?
Yeah. They don't want, those types of reputations and have to have those kinds of things to deal with. Because Whatnot had some pretty big name sellers on there who got the boot because they were doing not the best things.
Not great things.
Yeah. And I think, during that whole, you guys might not have been around, many of you might not have been around for this, but that whole debacle with PWCC and that public battle and all that, I think they've had some experiences where they're like, all right, we're going to be a little bit careful as we build this one up, until we know we can manage it and monitor it, and and then we can let random people do things. So,
well, I think
I just wish for like a seller like me, they'd like just acknowledge me, like acknowledge the application and.
Okay, Roman Reigns.
Well, you know what I mean? Like, let's have a conversation about this. Why do you want to do this? Or do you think you'd be a good fit? Or blah, blah, blah.
And you've been a part of their betas before.
Right. It's like the business who has all these signs. We're hiring. They put a commercial on TV. We're hiring. You apply for a job and then they never reply to you.
Super annoying, yeah.
Yeah, like, what are you doing? Like, why are you advertising you have jobs? And, and even if that person's not, like, let's say, it's a, some big job and you have only had a job working at McDonald's, fine, but you need to reply to that person and be like, hey, these are the things you could do so that you can get a job here one day. That's how you build your workforce.
Right.
You try to get people to be able to do the work that you need to have done. Like, I don't know. I don't understand the motivation of just like ignoring everything that,
It is a little odd. Yeah.
But I think I'm going to give them a benefit of the doubt. I've always been positive eBay. I've been on it since forever, selling something one way or another forever. And they've always done a decent job for me. And I think this is because it's live. I think they're just taking some extra, hand holding.
Yeah.
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 And I think they fear like they let somebody do eBay live selling and then that person sets up an auction and then they don't have any listings in there. They don't, you know what I mean? A no show or something like that. Yeah. So I think there's, maybe even more where like they don't want a bunch of no show events and then people are like, screw eBay live. No, the sellers aren't even there.
Where you're hurting the brand now.
Correct. Because they're going to identify it as eBay, not that seller. So,
yeah, all valid concerns. I think the part that gets people the most right now in this early stage is, to your point earlier, the lack of communication about it. Like, just tell me what you want. Tell me. Yeah. Tell me what's going on, right? So
yeah, like if you apply, because they have some little categories, like how many followers do you have in your store? How many dollars did you sell last year in your store? How many, like, okay, I had 100,000 in sales last year, because it's all like ranges, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, why can't they message you back and be like, oh, we're really looking for sellers who have at least $200,000? Like, give somebody a target of where they need to go, like if you want certain things. And maybe they don't. Like I said, maybe they're not even looking for that. They're just like hand-picking sellers. And the interest form really doesn't matter. Like, they're not even really considering that. They're just going out and hand-picking certain stores and saying it's for everyone, but it really isn't, like you said. And then eventually, they'll expand on that.
Well, I guess only time will tell where everything goes.
For sure.
So any other topics you wanted to touch on tonight before we shut her down?
No, nothing we can do in our short amount of time that we have left, but I wanted to address offers a little bit. Okay. And just kind of, I know we've definitely talked about that in the past, but I think for the next show, that's something I want to go over a little bit more. I have some different strategies on offers, and we get a lot of questions on that in the Discord, like how do you know what percentage to do, and how often do you send offers for those who have, clicked on an item, and do you send offers if you're already doing promotions? Do you want to give them another discount? Do you want to put, spend more money on the site? So I just kind of like to discuss that a little bit. I think you and I are fairly similar on how we handle offer stuff. We definitely have some minor differences that we can discuss, and I just love to get feedback and input from you guys on what you do and what questions you have about it. We can try to look at that again. I think that's one of those things that kind of ever evolves. I feel like I'm doing a lot more offers than I was even like a year ago.
Okay.
Like I'm sending more, and I'm getting more, and I'm accepting more, and I'm denying more. Like it just feels like everything is more than what it used to be.
Well, your store is bigger.
That's correct. Yep. But I'm like calculating those ratios. Even it still feels like it's bigger. Like I'll wake up in the morning and have 130 eligible items to send an offer on. It's the numbers are just they're bigger than what they were just for my growth of listings.
Okay.
So, and my second eBay store kind of hit a milestone. I crossed the $4,000 quarterly mark.
There you go.
Today. So that's what, for $1,200, $1,300 a month, something like that. So getting some solid growth there. Listings. I haven't done a video in a while, so you guys probably have no clue where I'm at on any of this right now. Just going to check my listing count. 7,771.
Okay.
So definitely had some growth in there. Sports sales have been just booming lately, so I've been spending more of my time just listing and keeping that store up. Trying to stay at the max as much as possible. I've sold a lot of non-sport in that store too, which is nice. It's opened some slots. I want to make sure I get sports cards in there. And a lot of my non-sport is monotonous because it's full sets that I've bought that I got to list. So like I got all my Star Wars Evolutions cards here, and I'll list a bag or two of these, and then I get bored because it's all the same card and I don't like it anymore.
Short attention span.
Yeah. So when I get to the sports, that's a little more mixed up, and it's a little bit more fun to list. Right. And then obviously anything I can scan, I'm not going to do right now. I'll hold it until I have the scanner, which is which is a lot of non-sport stuff. So yeah, but listing's going well. I got two big buys I'm looking at tomorrow. I'm going to go see in person both of them. I'm going to record them, so if I get any kind of decent video out of it, I'll maybe try to put together a video of that. I haven't done anything like that, and I like to have as much video of my buys as I can anyway for business purposes. So motivation to do it that way too. But one of them has a lot of non-sport stuff in it, so I'm pretty excited about that. And then the other one is a bunch of inventory that just came back from a Chicago show. So it'll be kind of fun to see, something outside of the region, what's coming in from that. Right. So I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully there's some stuff I can pick up tomorrow, and I'm very, very close to just scheduling another Whatnot auction and getting back into it. Especially now that I don't have as much pressure to list on eBay and all that, I can really just focus on a live show. Not have all the extra taxes are done, like all that stuff, all that floating stuff that was around is off my desk now for a while. It's probably the right time to jump back in and do a live and give that a go. Yeah. So like I said, my soccer one was successful. It feels disappointing to not get the money you think you should get on something. You have to get over that if you're going to sell something in 10 seconds.
Yeah.
To a limited audience. So, but if I do that, I'll schedule it. I'll post it in the Discord, and hopefully, a bunch of you can jump on there. And because I have like a bunch of this kind of stuff, right? So like color, decent color stuff, but it's not big names. Or it's a big name but no color, that kind of thing. Where like I'd be fine with like getting I have hardly any money into this. It came in like a giant basketball lot that I bought, and the stuff I've already sold out of it is paid for the whole thing.
Yeah.
Get a bunch of like numbered football. Here's a mirror red. Here's another certified mirror red. Those are numbered out of 1,000 or whatever. So I don't know. Just I feel like that might be good live auction type stuff, and I don't care if it goes for $1. So even better. And I'll try to pull a couple of bigger bangers in there just to have something to draw.
Yeah.
Draw people in as well. There's different ways, and that's one thing we kind of didn't talk. I don't know. Maybe you talked about it before I got here, but there are different ways to run those live auctions too. You don't have to do 10 seconds on death.
Right.
You can do the reload where like somebody makes a bid and the time starts over again, and like you can start the bids at different numbers. So if you're like, well, I don't want this to sell for $1, I want to get at least $2. Well, then do a $2 live auction. You might not sell as many, but you'll protect your downside on the card at the $2. So that's something to kind of consider too, is that you have to iron out ahead of time of how do you actually want to run your auction.
Yeah.
But I do like Whatnot's shipping. The way you do the shipping is really nice. You kind of go in and it just does all the labels for you at once, and then if you have less than 1,000 transactions done, they do hold your money until the buyer receives the card. But some of those were pretty quick. I mean, I got paid on most of them within 3 days. They were received. So if you're a fast shipper, you'll be okay there. But then, once we hit 1,000, I think it's 1,000 items sold, then they just pay you right away.
Right. A certified seller.
Is that what it is?
I don't know. It's probably something like that.
Sure. Yeah, that sounds good. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I've tried to get into eBay Live a few times. I've never even heard back from them. So I'm like, well, I have to continue on. And if I want to participate in live selling, I would get back on the Whatnot and do that again. I'm all set there. I've done my onboarding. I've already done a show, so I kind of know how it goes and the flow.
Yeah.
So no real work other than the fact that I got to, set up the show and perform it.
Yeah.
And then ship it. But yeah, maybe I'll do a baseball one. I think would be big right now. I'd love to do a non-sport show. I think that would be fun.
Yeah, that would be. And you don't see as much of that.
Yeah, and if I pick up stuff tomorrow, like quick flip type stuff, that's probably the perfect time to schedule a Whatnot.
Right.
And use that stuff to get out the door. So that's my motivation right now. We'll see how it goes. But everybody. Sorry.
One more question from Dan tonight. Do you just have a mix of sports cards for CDP to upload, or do you only upload by sport? He's always just sorted out each sport. What do you do?
I grab a handful and put them in the scanner.
So you do the mixed?
Yeah.
Okay. I find it takes longer
For
to
the
find
most
a
part,
match.
I mean, yeah, it can. For the most part, I might have a stack of, oh, these are all from that year top set. Okay, well, I'll scan them. So if I have them already sorted that way, sure, I'll scan it that way. But most of my stuff, especially where I bought like dealer boxes and stuff, they're going to be all mixed up. And I just take a stack, put them on the scanner, and scan them. The one thing you can't do is you can't mix non-sport with sport.
Right.
So those are obviously kept separate. But and TCG, you can't mix TCG with non-sport. So all my Pokemon, that'll go in one scan, and then all my Star Wars or whatever will go in another scan. But
yeah,
no, I don't like go through the sports and like separate them all or do anything like that. Just scan them.
I sort them all. When I bring stuff home from a show, it immediately gets sorted by sport and put into different boxes.
Yeah, I've just never done that. I've never seen. For me, I've never really had a reason to do that, so I don't do it. Just list them, scan them, and list them. Unless, like I said, it's something challenging where I have to look them up, or then maybe I would sort that out.
Mm-hmm.
But by sport, no, I don't do it by sport.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All
I don't think any way is wrong. You just need to know, what you're putting in, and
yeah.
Well,
like I said, in my experience, when I tried to mix and match stuff in the CDP, it took noticeably longer for it to find matches because it's going through a bigger catalog.
that could be.
But
yeah, I've never noticed that to be significant. A couple of seconds or whatever, and they're all there. So
yeah.
Maybe it used to be that way more back in the day, older software versions. But yeah, I'll scan all 4 sports in at one time in a stack, and they come up just as fast as if I did just football.
The other reason I do that is because I have my store category in my export template in CDP.
Yeah, and I don't do that. I update all my store categories later in eBay. I do that once a month. I go because I have certain players that I got to subcategorize to and stuff. So I just kind of go down the list, and all the Jordan Loves that I listed in the last couple months that weren't assigned correctly, I just look up Jordan Love and I change them all to football and Jordan Love for my 2 categories.
Yeah.
So but there's no right or wrong. It's whatever your process works for you. Yeah. I believe like time wise, it probably take about the same amount of time. So
okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, there we go. Answered our last question of the night.
Well, thanks everybody for joining us. I appreciate all of you. If you're watching this recorded, try to join us live. We do a live every Wednesday, 8:00 Central Standard Time. Myself, Charlie, and the pack of stews. Yeah, because we're a multi-goat family now. Our goats have multiplied.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'd love for you to join us live, join the conversations, and we try to answer questions. We try to get feedback from you, share our experiences, and we want to hear from you. That's the beauty of getting together to do this. Again, don't forget to join the Discord. It's just about to show through the bottom of the screen there. It's free. We got all kinds of great channels on there where we discuss this type of stuff, and I think you'd enjoy yourself. We have a good time on there. The GIF machine over here, he does a good job, adding levity to certain situations and keeping it loose. So I love that. Watch for a video tomorrow. I'm going to shoot, hopefully buying some inventory. Try to make a video of that pretty quick and post that. So look for that. Goat Show, June 8th. We talked about that at Riverside Ballroom. So get that on your calendar. I think that's about it. I think we touched on enough outside of that.
I agree. I think it's time to wrap her up.
Agreed.
Well, don't forget, when you see the goat, we're talking about some of the greatest of all time.
Remember, you can't sell what you don't list. See y'all next week. I'll be here for the entire show next week.
All right. Maybe I'll be late then.
Yeah, right on.